years ago now, which in itself is shocking. But the new concern for a lot of people in the industry is AI. And some people would argue that K-pop Demon Hunters is a prime example of how AI could be used to, whether it's for the animation or the voicing, how it could be used to effectively change the industry. So from your perspective, is it something that you're concerned about, or are you excited that AI could be introduced to make things more realistic or less realistic, or, I don't know, more fantastical?
I guess when it comes to things like AI in acting and music, I want to have hope in humanity that they would still seek out art that has humans behind it. Sure, I'm sure they're going to have AI actors and singers. I know they already exist. I know our voices are already being manipulated, but I hope people have some respect and want and love for something real. And I mean, if that's the way it goes, that's the way it goes. We can't control that, but I feel like I'm someone that looks for music that I know is written with heart, recorded with soul. And I hope that for movies the same. Because even though, yes, in animation, people feel like it's so close to that, there are hundreds and hundreds of people who worked on every single frame to make it what it is. But that's also movies, right? Hundreds of people work on a movie to make it happen. It's unfortunate that sometimes you only see the directors and the actors and the producers and the writers, but there are so many people on a crew behind the scenes that work tirelessly to do what we do. And if people want to take that away or diminish those jobs, or it would make me very mad. To say it in the most PC way. And sure, okay, someone could AI all of this, but it wouldn't be real. And it wouldn't be the same. And I feel like as smart or intelligent or as helpful as AI can be, I feel like it will never have heart and soul the way that we do. And I know that music and art, at least for me, the reason I do it and the reason I love it is because of how it makes me feel. And that I don't think can be replicated. So I hope people know. But it is funny. I did see some rumors that people thought our Huntrix singers were AI at one point because it was so good. But guess what? Our girls are real. And they can sing. And so, in a way, I guess it's a really nice compliment to be compared to AI. But, with all things in the future and things moving so fast, I mean, I can barely keep up. So who knows? I'm going to be hopeful, though.
Thank you for listening to the interview from the BBC World Service. You'll find more in-depth conversations on The Interview wherever you get your BBC podcasts, including episodes with Anika Wells, the Minister in charge of Australia's social media ban for under-16s, Google boss Sundar Pichai, and Hollywood great Sir Anthony Hopkins. Until next time, bye for now.
From the BBC, that was The Interview. I'm Saroja Coelho.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live in Studio 15. Thanks for joining us here. Today in the city of Winnipeg, cloudy, 30% chance of flurries, winds northwest at 30, and that'll get a little calmer around noon. Our high today is going to be right around minus 14. Little slick out there as it has been the last couple of days, but nothing major to report this morning. So here we are, Tuesday, December 23rd. You're on CBC, and thanks for being here. The morning show's on until 8:37 a.m. Let's say good morning to the crew, including May McKillop. Hey, May. May's directing the program again today. Mr. Abby Adiyemi, our senior tech behind the controls. Hey, Abby. Abby will be on the air covering the weather. And covering how we look visually is our YouTube producer. Say hello to Mr. Darren Marash. Good morning, Darren. Rounding out our crew here in Studio 15. Now, over at our news center, Heather Wells is standing by at 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. Here she is with our morning headlines.
Good morning. Well, a lot of talk, but not a lot of progress. That's what some say about the talk on interprovincial trade barriers. Executive Director at the Manitoba Trucking Association, Aaron Delinek, says his industry hasn't seen many practical changes. The talks, of course, intensifying after the U.S. tariffs this year. Delinek acknowledges changes, regulatory level, will be complicated and technical, but we're going to hear more about how it impacts one trucking business on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. And a Steinbach soup kitchen is benefiting from the generosity of a 15-year-old girl. Heather Bergman was awarded a grant from the Chrysalis Fund after making her case for Soups On, the Steinbach Soup Kitchen. So we'll hear more about that and what that soup kitchen does coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Oh, very nice story of generosity. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
I mentioned Winnipeg weather-wise. I just want to briefly say that Thompson's going to be minus 25 today, chance of flurries, and chance of flurries over in the city of Brandon as well. Your high's minus 14, so pretty similar to Winnipeg. This morning on the program, we're going to be talking about parking rules. You confused? A lot of people are. We had a temporary ban on residential parking. They were trying to clean everything up. You got to go to winter routes. Tonight at 7, get off those winter routes. Also, they're e-ticketing now, so if you think you escaped a ticket, maybe not so much. We're going to talk to Councillor Janice Lukes all about this in some more detail. Also, hundreds of kids in Manitoba could miss out on playing organized sports next year. We're going to hear why Kidsport Manitoba is facing a funding shortfall. Stay with us.
Tomorrow on Q.
Is there anything we could do to cheer you up?
Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad, is back with a new show, Pluribus. It's a post-apocalyptic zombie tale with a twist. Instead of eating our brains, something wants to make us all happy. Vince will tell you about that and why we need more stories about good guys.
Q. This morning at 10, 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The U.S. Department of Justice has released thousands of new files on Jeffrey Epstein this morning. The documents include more information about the convicted sex offender and U.S. President Donald Trump. Many lawmakers say the Justice Department is violating its legal obligations and that much of what has been released in the Epstein documents is highly redacted. Steve Futterman is following the breaking news. And Steve, what are we learning so far from this latest document dump?
Well, we need to go through these documents right now. Around 11,000 documents have been released, and this is in the last hour or so. So we're going through it slowly. Nothing has emerged right now. We do know that lots of these documents deal with communication between attorneys. I've come across one voicemail that seemed interesting, talking about some documents that someone wanted to get. But right now, nothing has emerged as a sort of a bombshell. But it's going to take some time. It's going to take several hours for us to at least go through the sort of the veneer of these documents to see if there's anything that emerges as very, very interesting. I'm sure there'll be some little nuggets in there as there were in the previous releases, but nothing has emerged right now.
What are we hearing from the survivors and their supporters?
Well, many of the survivors would just like all of these documents to be completely released. They would like it all out. They'd like to be done with this drip, drip, drip of some documents being released. Even though these are significant numbers, they would like all the documents released. It's very, very difficult for them each time a new batch of documents are released to wonder, are their names going to be mentioned? Some of these victims, by the way, have been talking about how as much as these documents are redacted, and this new batch includes lots of redactions from some of the PDFs I've looked at so far, but there have been some names that have gotten through this redaction process, and it's been very, very difficult for some of the victims to see their names mentioned. There were a couple Jane Does who had their names mentioned, and they've been very upset having their names exposed. So it's not a perfect process. No one thought it would be. But again, the victims and the lawmakers who really were demanding that these Epstein files be released, basically they would like it all released once and for all.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.
Reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia targeted his country last night with dozens of missiles and more than 650 drones. He says at least 13 different regions were attacked. And right now, air raid sirens are sounding across much of Ukraine. Zelensky says the attacks targeted the energy sector and civilian infrastructure. At least 3 people have been killed. Zelensky says now is the time for world leaders to push the Kremlin toward peace and force Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop the killing. Canada's Operational Command is considering permanent military bases in Latvia. They could help sustain Canada's NATO deployment in the Baltic region. That mission has been extended, but the Army is short of soldiers. And as Murray Brewster tells us, military planners are trying to figure out how to keep the ranks full.
We're looking at every option, very much understanding that we've got a limited number of troops.
Lieutenant General Steve Boivin is in charge of Canada's military operations, at home and abroad. He says planners under his command have embarked on a study about how to keep the deployment in Latvia going until 2029.
We're looking at whether it would make sense to permanently base people forward.
Boivin underlines, however, no decision has been made. No recommendations have gone to the Chief of the Defence Staff or the government on the notion of permanent basing. Right now, about 2,200 Canadian troops cycle through Latvia roughly every 6 months, a costly, time-consuming exercise that means there are very few soldiers left over for other missions. Steve Seidemann, a defense expert, says NATO nations have been reluctant to embrace the concept because of an agreement signed with Russia at the end of the Cold War that promised Western allies would not establish permanent bases in Eastern Europe. The invasion of Ukraine changed that.
The NATO-Russia Founding Act had some language to that effect, but since the Russians have violated pretty much every other clause of that agreement, we shouldn't be obligated by an agreement that they haven't respected.
At least one other NATO ally, Germany, has already embraced the idea and plans to have troops permanently stationed in Lithuania by 2027. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
It's been a tough year in Canada's automotive capital. For months, the industry has been feeling the pain of U.S. tariffs. But as Emma Loop reports, a reimagined car built in Windsor, Ontario, is turning heads south of the border.
The reborn Dodge Charger 6-pack is assembled in Windsor, but is racking up awards in the U.S., despite President Donald Trump's efforts to keep Canadian cars out. Dodge CEO Matt McAleer says the gas-powered car symbolizes the brand's future.
This marks kind of the evolution of muscle cars as we know it.
The 550 horsepower 6-pack started rolling off the line in Windsor earlier this month. Since then, it's won Top Gear's U.S. Car of the Year and the Detroit News' Vehicle of the Year. It embodies a broader shift back to gas as the electric market stagnates. Auto analyst Sam Fiorani says car companies had geared up for huge EV adoption.
And while there is a market for EVs, a lot of buyers really want a gas engine because they understand it.
For Canada's car capital, the reborn Charger is also a glimmer of hope. Windsor's unemployment rate was among the highest in Canada for much of the year. Mike Stevenson is from Unifor Local 444, which represents workers at the plant.
Stellantis is putting these cars here in spite of the tariffs. So that's a testament to the workforce. And to me, I'll take that good news while we can get it because it's been a tough year.
The 6-pack is now a finalist for North American Car of the Year. The winner will be revealed next month at the Detroit Auto Show. Emma Loop, CBC News, Windsor.
The Alberta Prosperity Project is one step closer to getting a referendum on separatism. Its last proposed question was deemed unconstitutional. Since then, the Alberta government has changed the law, and now Elections Alberta has approved a new petition from the group. It calls for a referendum asking Albertans if their province should become an independent state. Mitch Sylvester is the Alberta Prosperity Project CEO.
I think this is going to be the biggest political decision anybody in Canada will ever make in their lifetime. I believe every Albertan will be much better at the end of this referendum vote if we vote to leave Canada. The Canada that I grew up with is no longer the Canada that I'm living in, and my fervent hope is to have that back.
His petition now has 4 months to collect nearly 178,000 signatures. Another petition calling for Alberta to remain part of Canada forever has already collected more than enough signatures and been certified. For years, families with children with autism have been speaking out about how difficult it can be to access services in Canada. Now a new program aims to help more families by using some four-legged friends. Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind has graduated its first 2 autism service dogs. The CBC's Natalia Goodwin met up with one of the families and their new helper.
4-year-old Nora Beale plays on the floor with her yellow Labrador, Fred, at her home in Pembroke, Ontario. But he's no ordinary companion. He's been trained by Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind. He helps her sleep better and with emotional regulation by applying pressure with his head, paws, or full body to help her calm down, explains her mom, Lindsay.
He responds and gives her something, like he's so soft, so like she loves to pet him.
He also has special training to prevent her from running off, which Nora is prone to do, with a second leash attached to Nora's waist. It allows the family to do simple things, like shopping together.
You know, we've been able to participate in community activities, and not only is that great for her, she has an older brother, and so it allows him to go out and participate in things because we're not so much worried about accommodating her needs in those environments.
Nsindisi Bongoza, a trainer with Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind, says the program was built out of need. They've been receiving requests for years.
Over the time, through inquiries and people always asking us, and then we thought in 2025, why not give it a try?
But all the work pays off when he sees the result with the families.
That gives that fulfillment that you contribute in somebody's life.
Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind says it will continue to develop the program with placements planned for the upcoming year. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. How you doing with your lists and your running around? Hopefully you'll have time for a nice coffee and a relax today. Thanks for starting your morning with us. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. You are on CBC on this Tuesday, December 23rd, and we do have a bit of a warning in terms of cold today. This is a yellow level warning. It's for up around Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, Puck, Rocher, and Tuduli. Wind chill values near minus 45. It's going to be milder here in Winnipeg. Abby in with our forecast for the south in just a minute here. This hour on the show, can you guess what Santa might be bringing? We're going to ask a local toy store owner what was popular this year, and we'll hear what Santa might be taking inspiration from. Also, at this hour on the program, the holidays are full of cheer, but there's also a few sneaky scams that pop up every time this year as well, at this time of year. We're going to hear more about how to stay safe in the holiday season, what to look for when it comes to scams. And then at 10 to 7, we're going to go through the list of charities that give you the best bang for your buck. Right now to local news headlines with Heather Wells.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg city councillor isn't sure what more can be done to get drivers to stay off residential streets when they're being plowed. The city's been asking you to know your zone and check for parking restrictions this week. Public Works Chair Janice Luke says some people haven't gotten the message and stay parked, forcing plows to go around them. We're going to hear more from her coming up. And Manitoba's senior representative to the U.S. says Canada's new ambassador has his work cut out for him. Richard Madden responding to the appointment of Mark Wiseman, a finance executive with no diplomatic or government experience. But Madden says Wiseman's background can help Canada in trade talks. We'll hear more in our next news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thanks, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Let's get into that forecast now. Good morning, Abby, Emmy. How are you?
Well, it's
Good.
Good morning to you, Marcy.
Morning.
It's not as cold as we've been getting in this past few days, so I'll take this mild one,
Heather was saying that this morning, too. I still feel kind of chilled. I actually think maybe for the first time in my, well, maybe not the first time in my life, for the first time in a long time, I'm pretty sure I got frostbite on my hands over the weekend. I was outside and I was doing something and I had to take my mitt off. And now I find that this hand, particularly on this, I've got one finger and I'm like, why is that finger now like almost tingly and sensitive? So that would be a little bit of frostbite.
A bit frostbite there, so
So,
take it easy. And talking about frostbites, there are concerns for folks in the northern part of the province. We're talking about Lynn Lake, Tuduli Lake, and towards Churchill, and even part of Gillen might be tied up into that. It's going to be really, really talking about the extreme cold. We have that yellow warning for northern parts of the province covering Lynn Lake towards Tuduli Lake. As mentioned, the wind chill is in the range of -45. Even some areas would see wind chill in the speed of -46 this morning. So frostbite in minutes for folks in that part of the province. Take it easy. For Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region at this time, currently -14, cloudy outside. We do have that slim chance of flurries in the forecast this morning, and our morning temperature will not be moving much today. Not even just the morning temperature, the temperature in general will not be moving much today. We're going to see it just hover between -15 and -14 all day. Expect some breezy conditions from the northwest, and then it's going to ease off by the noon period as we reach that high, which we're holding steady -14 at this time, though the wind chill still feels close to -26 for folks out there. Similar conditions we're seeing in southern regions, the Pembina Valley region, the Westman, the Parkland, Interlake region, cloudy skies, light winds, temperatures holding steady between -12 and -16 throughout the day. Then further north, you're dealing with those extreme wind chill in the values of -45 around the Churchill region. But for Winnipeg right now, it's -14, and we will stay around that mark all morning and even into the afternoon period.
check 511 for your highways and give us a call if you have a problem on your commute. 788-3093. Well, if you're tired of shaking gifts under the tree to guess what might be wrapped up, we might be able to help you. Yesterday, we heard a few things from Carrie England. Carrie's the owner of Toad Hall Toys here in Winnipeg. And she joined Chloe Friesen to talk everything toys.
So let's get straight to it. What toys were the big sellers this year?
It's more categories of toys, not individual items. Dolls, it's very much a doll year this year. Kids are really into nurturing. It's a yo-yo year again.
Really? Yo-yos are back.
Yeah, they're back. Last year was marbles. This year it's yo-yos. It sort of resurfaces every couple of years. Costumes for kids, really big, especially night costumes for boys. Mostly boys, but we do have them for girls too. And always games. They're just a perennial favorite. Building toys are hot. Things tools to build with cardboard are one of the things that is going really, really well this year.
Okay, I've heard about this. This is a newer product. What's it called?
It's called Make Do.
Yeah.
And it's so you can take whatever cardboard boxes come to your house and you can score them and cut them with child-safe tools and make incredible things. And they have a website which will give kids ideas and tell them, step by step how to do things. And so creativity abounds with this toy.
Very cool. What about fidget toys? I've heard a lot about fidget toys, and I've kind of, you know what? Honestly, my own desk is covered in them.
Fidget toys have been really big, probably for the last 3 years, like ever since we opened up back from COVID. Things like picky pads, so you're picking things out of a mold almost, and then you can make bracelets with the things you pick out, or create different scenes with the things. There are things you squish, things you peel. It's all over the board, but it's just to stop us from picking ourselves, or just to stress relief.
How are toy trends different in local stores like yours versus chain stores?
So I always run across it when I'm doing corporate gifts. I get a list of kids and then the toys that they're interested in, and it's always things that are advertised on through the TV shows that they watch, or the movies that they go to. And since that's not what we're about, I provide all sorts of other things. It's one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know. So when you walk in our store, you probably haven't seen 2/3 of those things or didn't know they exist because they're not being advertised to you or your children.
Has online shopping changed your sales this year?
Not as heavily as it did in COVID. It's rather consistent, but instead of a lot of orders that we're shipping out, like out of province, we have a healthy number of parcels that go out to be delivered, but even more that just people will pick up in store. They just want to make sure that item is held for them.
Over this past year, we've talked about the idea of more adults buying toys, whether that's Legos, whether that's stuffed animals or fidget toys. Is that something you're still seeing?
Yeah, we call it, I think it's called kidulting.
Oh, I like it.
And for us, it's things like, well, we don't carry Lego. We carry a product called Laws, which uses the smallest of the Lego bricks, and it's making little houses. It's making the Titanic, but it also makes they have a whole bunch of plants that you can make, and so that's been very large. But also miniature dioramas, I'll call them, so you can make a
Yes.
greenhouse or a book nook. So those have been really, really large for us. Yes.
I have been seeing those. I got one recently as a gift, and tiny little like nook, like little desk, little chair, and you build it. And I realized I love how they look. I just don't have the patience for them.
Well, you have to give it to the right person. I do get that, but they're getting even more advanced now. So they have sound and motion in the backgrounds.
Ooh.
So I know.
I've realized they're good if you know someone who likes to puzzle. It seems like
Yes.
that's a good connection point.
I don't think you're wrong. And the nice thing about these is people still love miniatures, but they don't want a dollhouse that takes up half the living room. So
Hmm.
these will just fit nicely on a shelf when you're done.
Anything that surprised you about this year's trends?
That they're still the same as ever. It's, puzzles are big, board games are big. I think the only one that I was kind of between was, as I mentioned, like knights, swords and shields for kids. That came out of left field for us. We were able to supply, but it was just, oh, why? I don't know.
That is interesting. And I can't think of any like big movie releases or shows or anything that connects with nights. So it's interesting how these trends kind of just ebb and flow.
That's exactly what it is. Like I said before, it's yo-yos one year, marbles the next, and dolls. It's sort of every 2 or 3 years we just see this big surge, and I can't put my finger on it, but you can see it coming early enough that you can respond to it, and that's the nice thing about an independent store. I can make choices tomorrow, as opposed to a big chain where their stuff was set in motion over a year ago.
Kari, what do you think you could still get? What toy could you still get under the Christmas tree that would bring you a lot of joy?
A really good escape room game.
Ooh, like a board game.
It's no real board.
Okay.
You have a box, and inside the box are clues to help you unlock things and move through the game. You have to be able to unlock everything in order to get out of the room. And you got an app that you can download that gives you the background music, that goes with
Whoa.
I know, it's really cool. So we did one with an airplane, and it sounded like somebody's ringing the call button every once in a while. You can hear the engines, and yeah.
Oh, I love that.
So,
So escape room in a box.
Yeah, that's called an exit game.
That's Carrie England, the owner of local Toad Hall Toys, speaking with CBC's Chloe Friesen yesterday on Up to Speed. The Winnipeg Toy Store is on Arthur Street, and love that idea about the using the boxes that are all around, right? All those Amazon boxes and other retailers that you might have hanging out, and scoring them with those kid-friendly tools. Never heard of that. That is on the Listen app in case you want to check it out and review. Time right now is 6:22 a.m. on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. It's -14. It's cloudy in Winnipeg. And there's a lot of scams at this time of year, so let's find out what they are. Carmi Levy has just popped up on my Zoom feed, and he's got all the deets. He's our technology analyst and journalist. Hey there, Carmi. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great. So good to be with you, Marcy, and to see you.
Yeah, so let's talk about why people are vulnerable to scams during the holidays. I'm going to guess first for a second. Is it because they're sort of doing so much online and rushing through it? Like, what makes us more vulnerable?
Yeah, it's definitely all down to the rush. We're so busy. I mean, we're 2 days away from Christmas here. Everyone just wants to get it done. There's that hard deadline. You can't miss that. And so we're probably not paying attention to the small signs of, things that might be, indicative that something is a little bit amiss and we just want to finish it. So cyber criminals know this. They take advantage of it. And it's also a bit of a numbers game. If you think of digital fraud, it's all about covering as many victims as possible and following us where we are in the digital space. Well, this time of year, we're all shopping. So that's where criminals are going to find us. They're going to make their attacks, their messages look like they're shopping related. Just like, in a couple of months, it's going to be all about the Super Bowl. They match it to the season. And this is the season, and it happens every year, yet every year we kind of seem to ignore it because we're just so busy, focusing on this one thing.
So we're talking about things like tampered gift cards, messages, as you said, that seem real, the fake deal messages too that come through. Are there common red flags that shoppers and online users should be watching for?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is it often looks like an ad in social media, and that's becoming an increasing vector of attack. It's a very slick looking ad. It's got a video in it, a demo. It's probably an emotional pull. It looks amazing. It's something that you absolutely have to have, and all you need to do is click here to buy it. Social media makes it really easy for cyber criminals to hide sort of their true origins, and that is an incredibly popular way of reaching out, especially because we spend so much time in social media. They're meeting us where we are. We might get an email or a text message from a delivery company. Sorry, we tried to deliver that package and we failed. So click here to rearrange delivery with FedEx or UPS or Canada Post or whatever. That's a common one as well. Click on that link and you've been had. It might look like an email just advertising this week's Christmas sales from a retailer that you're familiar with. But if you look a little bit closely, even though the logos and the graphics and everything are just absolutely bang on, something is a little bit amiss. Maybe the URL, the web address has an extra letter in it or something. But again, you got to lean in to notice this. Or you'll be asked to pay with a gift card. Get a lot of these pop-ups just before you check out. Pay with a gift card, a prepaid credit card, download an app for a payment service that you've probably never heard of. Or even pay in cryptocurrency. Obviously, no real retailer would ever do that, but again, you're rushing, you may just blip right through it without even giving it a second thought.
How soon can we get in trouble? And I'm going to give you the practical example because I don't mind being the guinea pig here. So you see an ad come up on your social feed and you click on it. And then I did this yesterday. And then I'm like, I shouldn't have done that. And so then usually I will clear out my search. And then I'll try to Google the website for the retailer that I thought it was for. And I'll try to then get to a legitimate site or what I think is a legitimate site. Are you already in trouble though? Because you clicked on the ad from your social media to get to the sites. Like, how sophisticated are these things getting?
It is possible, and a lot of it depends on the particular sort of attack form. So in some cases, click once and you are taken to a rogue site that might install malware or might steal your information or might do something that compromises you immediately. Or in some cases, you get off lucky and the payload isn't as scary as it probably could be. And so maybe you can back out of it and you'll be okay. But you did mention something that I think is really worth repeating, is that you backed out of the experience and then you opened up a browser and you did your own research. And that is absolutely crucial. Never follow those links home. Never, answer a phone call or click on a link or go to a website that they tell you to. Just because they say they're this store doesn't mean that you should trust them. So if you do your own research, do your own searches, follow through, and then creep them separately to make sure that, this is an actual website, or I've actually found that deal that I saw on social media. That can save you a lot of trouble, prevent you from being pulled into that particular scam.
What about the calls, emails, and texts, that kind of stuff that you mentioned? What do we look for to figure out whether or not that's legitimate, if it's coming from a bank or a delivery service?
I mean, the first thing to do is don't engage, right? We think that we have to engage, but we really don't. The world isn't going to end if you don't follow that link home, answer that email, answer that text. And so my sort of 3 words that I advise everyone is always check the source, because because inevitably they're using social media and the platform that they're on to hide the source, so that you aren't incentivized to figure out that they aren't in fact who they say they are. And so I will then move to a separate non-touchscreen device. So if you're on your smartphone or your tablet, bail out of that device and go to your computer and use what I call the hover method. Take your mouse, hover over the email address, the web address, wait for it to pop up. That's not engaging with it, and you're not actually getting into trouble there, but it will show you that chances are if it's your bank or your payment processor or a retailer, they wouldn't be using a Hotmail or a Gmail account to reach out to you. Or if you know the URL or the web address of the retailer that you're supposed to be dealing with, you can usually tell that, they inserted an extra letter, or it's from a .ru domain. I'm pretty sure that the stores that I shop at don't originate in Russia.
So I'm going to just interject for a second because I know you have more to share, but we're hovering to look for what? To actually specifically read that address and kind of note the things you mentioned. Okay.
Exactly. So you should be knowing your addresses. Know, for example, what would, the CIBC or Canada Post or, my visa processor, know what their web addresses should be in Canada, and then match them against what you're seeing there, because oftentimes they won't be connected at all.
Okay, let's scare people now.
A little fear is probably a good thing.
What? Because we don't have enough to do. What's ghost tapping?
Ghost tapping is, and so remember that electronic fraud can happen when you're in a brick and mortar store as well. So you're in a store, you're minding your own business, and someone just taps you, bumps into you from the back. And what they're doing, they're using rogue point of sale terminals to activate the tap to pay feature that's built into pretty much every credit and debit card today, as well as your phone. You can tap to pay with your phone too. That can be activated by a rogue POS terminal too. So what you want to do is, when you're in a store, hold your bag or your wallet or anything where your cards and your phones are in front of you to minimize being bumped, and consider getting what's called a Faraday pouch, which is essentially, it stops radio transmissions from happening from the outside. That way you can control when you tap to pay, and you're protected when some stranger bumps up against you.
All right, we're going to leave it there and wish you happy and safe holidays. Hopefully none of us will be scammed, and thanks for all the advice, Carmi.
Really appreciate being with you. Thanks so much, Marcy. Have a great Christmas.
You too. Carmen Levy is a technology analyst and journalist with us this morning, talking about all those scams out there. So I heed that advice. Check everything. It's cloudy in Winnipeg. There is a yellow level cold warning for up around Lynn Lake and Leaf, Puck, Brochet, and Dooley Lake. So it could feel like minus 45 with those very cold wind chills. Traffic right now is looking okay. Check your highways 511 before you head out. And at one small traffic alert, Portage in Maryland, there is a stalled vehicle. Westbound first middle lane is blocked. So take it easy around there, or I guess shimmy around there if you need to, if that car is still in the way. 788-3093. Business news after your CBC Winnipeg news.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is minus 14 degrees, and our temperature is going to stick right around there for the next day, because we've got a high today of minus 14, and overnight our low, minus 15. So not a lot of motion in that temperature. There is a slight chance of flurries today. Well, you likely weren't towed, but you still may have a ticket coming in the mail if you violated this week's Winnipeg residential parking ban. The city hasn't done courtesy tow since December 2022. That's when they moved vehicles to nearby streets. Instead, it's issuing fines to people who parked vehicles that block plows from clearing streets. Waverly West City Councillor Janice Luke chairs the city's Public Works Committee.
I don't know if there's anything more we can do. We did increase the price of tickets, which is $200, $150, I believe, if you pay early. We did that a couple of years ago. Maybe we need to increase the price of tickets.
The number of fines handed out to those who didn't move their cars from their street during this ban will be released after the residential snow clearing operation is done. It ends at 7 tonight. Peguis First Nation has filed a lawsuit against former band chief Glenn Hudson. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the statement of claim raises allegations of kickbacks, diverting funds, and what it calls other corrupt practices.
In a statement of claim filed Friday with Manitoba's Court of King's Bench, Peguis alleges Hudson failed to act in the best interests of the band and benefited from breaches of duty when he served as chief. The band claims in the lawsuit Hudson enriched himself, his family, and his supporters. The claim alleges Hudson made cash gifts to band members and invoiced the band for home furniture and vehicles. Hudson was the chief from 2007 to 2015, and then from 2017 to 2023, when he lost an election he's still contesting in court. Current Peguis chief Stan Bird said in a video address Peguis's counsel didn't take the decision to sue a former chief lightly. Hudson said in a statement he'll defend himself from what he called frivolous claims from Stan Bird. Hudson said Bird is waging a negative campaign in an attempt to affect the outcome of the next election. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Manitoba Trucking Association says companies still grapple with interprovincial issues every day. It comes as the national conversation on alleviating barriers has intensified under this year's U.S. tariffs. Executive Director Aaron Dolinek says his industry hasn't seen many practical changes, despite many discussions on aligning provincial regulatory requirements. He acknowledges they are complicated and technical. Dolinek says the sector has long called for one national database and system to manage safety in trucking instead of each jurisdiction regulating it separately.
Let's look at a way of ensuring that those high standards exist, but ensuring that they exist sort of evenly across the country. The provinces have to be willing, but Transport Canada also has to step up and, quite frankly, take responsibility for some of it as well.
The Manitoba government says the National Council of Transportation Ministers is developing a memorandum of understanding on interprovincial trucking. The head of Manitoba's trade office in Washington says Canada's new ambassador to the U.S. will have his work cut out for him. Mark Wiseman moves into the role as the two countries are locked in a trade war, and a review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, is coming up. The U.S. wants changes to Canada's supply management system, including rules around dairy exports. Richard Madden is Manitoba's senior representative to the U.S.
It's not just supply management that's a driver in Manitoba, but agriculture exports, livestock, pork, grains. There is a push by many groups here in the U.S. to have mandatory labels of origin from Canadian livestock or Manitoba livestock coming into the U.S. Where Canada stands on that is a little unclear at the moment, so that's an issue he'll have to tackle.
Wiseman, a business executive, has no diplomatic or government experience, but Madden says his background will be an asset when it comes to dealing with the top U.S. financial officials. It is one of the biggest bombardments Ukraine has been hit with in months. This morning, most of Ukraine is on high alert. Overnight, Russia targeted residential streets and power grids right across Ukraine, killing at least 3 people. You can hear the latest national and international news on World Report at 7. The Granite Curling Club wants a judge to quash Winnipeg's decision to approve an apartment complex planned for the parking lot next door. It's asking for a review of council's vote to disregard a municipal board decision, saying it can't issue a development permit unless it and the club work out parking. Granite board member Christian Pierce thinks City Hall's result is illegal, but would still prefer to reach a deal.
The mayor says he's got a win-win solution, and we would love to see it, and we've requested to meet with them many times, and we'd love them to accept our invitation to meet.
Both the city and mayor's office declined comment. A Steinbach soup kitchen is benefiting from the generosity of a 15-year-old girl. Heather Bergman was awarded a $500 grant from the Chrysalis Fund after making her case for Soups On. Twice a week, Soups On feeds anyone who needs a warm meal at Grace Mennonite Church. Heather has been volunteering there for a year and a half. Heidi Bergman is her mom.
It's just really amazing to see your children grow and learn and find special ways that they can connect in the community and with others, and to see Heather's heart filled by helping others.
And you can read more on that story as well as other Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
We're taking calls this morning. If nothing else, what one thing has to happen to make your holiday season? What do you wait for or wait to do? Elaine Janke wrote in, I know a few families who've left say making multi-generational family pre-Christmas gatherings are a thing, and she shows this picture on my Facebook page where they're making lefse. I do not know what this is, but it looks like some kind of an unleavened sort of a pancake, and someone's going to call and tell us. I know and I hope. So very cool. Thanks for sharing. Jacqueline Castle Kramer says it's Christmaka supper with the family. So we're a mixed faith family, so we celebrate both. We call it Christmaka. Latkes and pierogies, yum. Sounds like everyone wants to go to your house, Jacqueline, and just people writing in what they need to happen. So simple things, right? Linda Locke's writing in, I need to see my parents. Joanne, I just have to see my kids and my grandkids in person. Nothing else really matters, Joanne writes. We all live in and around the city, so I'm one of the lucky ones. Brian Jameson says he's gathering with family at Christmas for the first time in 12 years, which is so lovely. Maingan and Wimway wrote in, visitors feel like magic. We normally have to travel to see family and friends. When we get to welcome them at home, it feels very much in the Christmas spirit. Ben Chappell says winning a huge lottery would do it for me. Some people writing in. Abby's smiling at that one. You too, Abby? Yeah.
You count me in.
If we could all make that happen for each other, right? And a lovely little picture here of a little bird with a Santa hat. Kev Roberts says hearing Kevin Canary sing his little lungs out. So people writing into us today. We're just 2 days to go. A lot of people in that kind of rush around mode. So just trying to slow it down and think about what really matters this holiday season. Thanks for sharing, everybody. What really matters to you is what we're asking about. 788-3205. We should spin it today, though, Abby. We should get a little funny.
Okay.
What don't you need to happen? Like, what could just not happen? What do you not?
Fruitcake.
What? Fruitcake is always getting a bad rap.
Fruitcake.
Okay, you know why you're saying that? Because you don't have head cheese on the table. Have you ever had head cheese?
My brain still separates flour and fruit.
Okay.
If I'm having a cake, I'm having a cake. If
Okay,
I'm having fruits, I'm having fruit.
You ready for this?
I know people would come for me, but fruits and cakes don't blend in my universe.
Do you know what head cheese is?
If it's mixing with flour, I have issues with it.
Okay.
That's it.
Here's what head cheese is. Imagine a clear Jell-O, but like a gelatin that's almost softer than a Jell-O, and there's meat in it.
No. Still, no.
Enough said.
I'm not processing fruits and flour mixing together. They are two separate ingredients in my head.
Just skipping right over the head cheese. Okay, let's get into what's going on in the forecast today.
Well, most of the regions are actually starting cloudy this morning, except for that deep freeze we're seeing in the northern part of the province. The south will stay steady, just a few flurries coming our way. We have a yellow warning in effect for the northern part. We're talking about the extreme cold warning for Tutuli Lake, Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, surrounding community. It's really going to be brutal with that wind chill around minus 45, minus 46. So it means frostbite in minutes for folks there, so you need to take it easy. If you're taking your pets out, if it's cold for them, if it's cold for you, it's cold for the pets. That's how I say it. For Winnipeg right now, minus 14, cloudy in the city. We just have that slim chance of flurries this morning. Our temperatures will be holding steady near minus 14 all day with some breezy conditions from the northwest, and then that dies down around the noon period. Some clouds rolls in later, and we still stay around minus 14, minus 15 overnight before we see a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Alton, and Morris, all the way towards Port Perry this morning. We're looking at temperatures also hovering between minus 12 and minus 14. Partly cloudy conditions also there. Your highs would just stay around minus 11, minus 12 for those regions. For Brandon towards Nipawin, we're seeing minus 15 at this time. Cloudy conditions you're getting. Your temperatures also hover around minus 13 and minus 14. Slim chance of snow early in the day, but then you're just going to see cloudy conditions for the rest of the day. For the Parkland region, Duff and Russell, surrounding communities, just sitting at minus 16 at this time. It's going to stay cloudy for most of the day. Your highs just be around minus 14. Gimli, good morning. You're at minus 15 at this time. You stay steady also there. Some areas might warm up to about minus 14 later. We have a slim chance of flurries and cloudy conditions for you for most of the day. Now we track conditions into the north gradually, where we're seeing those cold conditions with temperatures temperatures in the range of the minus 22s and the minus 27s. The path Flin-Flon surrounding communities, we're looking at minus 22 to minus 24, depending on where you are. A good chance of light snow earlier. It stopped and now it's cloudy in that part of the province. Tracking it towards Thompson, where temperature sits at minus 26 at this time. We're seeing light snow there. You stay around that for most of the day, but the wind chill factored in feels like minus 37, so you need to take it easy. And then, going towards the warning zone where Tuduli Lake and surrounding communities, frigid minus 31 at this time. Highs would be around minus 27, but the wind chill feels like minus 45 in that part of the province. Then for Churchill and the York region, we're looking at minus 30 at this time. Expect sunny conditions, but it's going to get pretty windy at that part of the province. Your highs minus 27, but the wind chill close to minus 45 also. Overall, cloudy and cold, extremely cold in the northern part of the province, while the southern part of the province will be holding steady, not really getting to, we won't see any part of the south get to minus 17, 18 today, except for Melita, which is at minus 19 at this time.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
6:42 a.m., you're on CBC. Let's look at the traffic. In Winnipeg, Portage and Maryland, a stalled vehicle westbound first middle lane is blocked. Also, we're going to get you out to the highways in a moment. Yeah, I'm just double checking that. That is still the case. So Portage and Maryland. Out on the highways then now. Heading south out of Winnipeg, 75 St. Norbert to St. Agatha is partly snow covered. Southeast of Winnipeg, Highway 1 toward Whiteshell partly covered. Same with 15 through Enola. And to the north highways, 59, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all partly covered conditions. That's pretty standard for this time of year. But a lot of those are two-lane highways, so just heed that. Check 511 before you head out. Apparently through Lac du Bonnet area, everything's snow-covered, and there's also some reduced visibility in addition. Darren's got the map up if you're checking this out on YouTube. In western Manitoba, snow-covered conditions are reducing visibility, as I mentioned, on Highway 10, but also on 20 and 6 heading north. And then through the north specifically, partly snow-covered and reduced visibility also toward Flin-Flon, and then also up around Thompson. So it's winter, folks. That's where we're at. Let's get to business news with Crystalie Ramlakan. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's talk about traveling for the holidays. Where are people in Canada still not going?
Well, south of the border. So the number of Canadian resident return trips from the United States is down by more than a quarter. And that's compared to a year ago. And that's according to new data from Statistics Canada. Trips by car dropped by almost a third, and trips by air dipped by about 15%. And some travel agents say some people just don't want to be a part of anything that is going on in the U.S. right now. And of course, we know political turmoil and tariffs, all that kind of stuff with the Trump administration erupted soon after he returned to the White House. Now, when we look at air travel, Toronto Pearson's airport has seen an increase in overall passenger volumes, and that's largely been driven by strong domestic growth. But that has been partially offset by that decline in travel to and from the U.S. Same at Vancouver's airport. It's on track for a record year in numbers, but has seen a decline in passengers to and from the U.S. But you know what? The number of trips to Canada by U.S. and overseas residents is up. So people are still traveling here.
You have an update this morning on a story that you told us about last week. It's about a grocery delivery app that's running AI tests on customers. So what's the update?
Yes, so Instacart is now ending price tests that resulted in different shoppers being shown different prices after criticism of its artificial intelligence-driven pricing tool. So the company faced outcry after a study by Consumer Reports and two other nonprofits showed some shoppers saw prices up to 23% higher than others, browsing the same exact items from the same store at the same time. So last week, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission also questioned Instacart about its Eversight pricing tool, which allowed retailers to run random tests to gauge shoppers' reactions to higher and lower prices. So, they're kind of testing to see how much are people willing to pay for something before they're not going to buy it. And Instacart has acknowledged the dissatisfaction in a blog post, saying it is immediately ending all price tests on the platform. And these randomized tests join a list of AI pricing tactics that have faced scrutiny and calls for regulation, along with dynamic pricing based on demand and personalized pricing based on shoppers' data.
And finally this morning, a fashionable side hustle is actually gaining some traction.
Yes, so this is renting out your clothes and accessories. So some users say they have made thousands a month using apps like Pickle, which is a peer-to-peer clothing rental app. Now, it's not a new concept. I mean, we saw Jennifer Hudson's character rent a Louis Vuitton purse in the Sex and the City movie back in 2008.
So Louise from St. Louis, I just have one more question. Okay. How does an unemployed girl with 3 roommates afford the patchwork denim Boley Louis Vuitton bag?
It's rented. Bag, borrow, steal. It's like Netflix for purses.
How can I not know about this?
Girl, stick with me. I'll hook you up.
Hey, remember when Netflix actually rented out physical movies? But yeah, unlike Rent the Runway and other clothing and rental apps, Pickle doesn't require a subscription and it's supplied by users' closets. So from Airbnb to car rental site Churro, there's been a growth in share economies where people can earn money by lending out their belongings. Now, of course, this is a signal that people are feeling increasing economic pressure. And this combination of cash-strapped people with greater appetites for luxury consumption who have a hustler mentality has kind of created a market here. Some people are even treating it like a business, buying expensive items to rent out and pay off and eventually make money from. And creators of these kinds of apps say circulating items feeds into a trend of trying to avoid overconsumption. And some experts say the desire for sustainability will be a growing force for sharing apps.
All right, Crystalie, thanks for this. Are you in tomorrow?
I am. I'm here.
All right, I'm in tomorrow as well. We'll talk to you then.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Marcy.
I'm always gauging my colleagues when to say happy holidays, right? That is Crystalie Ramlakan, regularly delivering business news here on Information Radio. Well, how about some happy holiday music? Maybe you're waiting for someone to come home. Here's Jen Grant with a cover of a classic on CBC 89.3 FM.
I'll be home for Christmas. You can plan on me. Please have snow and mistletoe and presents on the tree. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams. Christmas Eve will find me where the love light gleams. I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams, if only in my dreams.
She's got some big clear pipes, doesn't she? That is Jen Grant. If you're looking for a Canadian artist from the East Coast, it's her cover of I'll Be Home for Christmas. It's 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. Well, next on the show, unfortunately, during the season of giving and love, you can get scammed. Earlier this hour, we talked about online scams. Now let's talk about what's happening with charities. You might be wondering which ones legitimately you should be giving to and which ones maybe don't rate so highly. Not necessarily a scam, but there are some problems. So one organization helps Canadians make the most of your charitable donations. Charity Intelligence has compiled their list of organizations with the greatest impact. It's something they do every year, and that's so you can ensure your money's used effectively and goes as far as possible. So let's find out about this year's list. Kate Bain is with us, Managing Director of Charity Intelligence. She is on via Zoom today. Hi there.
Good morning, Marcy.
So tell me about the impact, when we talk about the impact in a charitable sense, that is, what do we actually mean? Like, how do you measure the impact of these charities?
Asking how to measure impact is like asking an economist how to measure GDP. It's complicated. And it's morning, so good morning, Winnipeg. What you're looking for is you're looking for a charity that makes a difference. So you want to be able to see when people are in need, when they come to the charity, and then when they're helped by the charity, what is the difference in that person's lives? And being able to measure that difference. So if you look at education, that's a very high impact area. Food banks typically are delivering very high impact. And international charities, again, when you're seeing, whether you can deliver, vaccinations, polio vaccinations, saving lives like that, those are high impact interventions. So that's what we do at Charity Intelligence. We do the research and then the analysis of charities so that you have the information at your fingertips. You can see the star ratings and you can see, how a charity and learn more about its programs and how it spends the money. We also have our most popular list each year for those donors who are looking for the biggest bang for the buck. As you said, the 2025 top impact charities.
Can you give us a sense of where folks can see their donations going the furthest? You mentioned the areas often, and maybe elaborate as well on where there's the least impact. Like, what's at the bottom of that list as well?
The least impact is, and we always want to talk about goods, but let's talk about the bads. The least impact, I would say, is feel good. In a fire, Canadian disaster response, handing out teddy bears, right? When people need backhoes, they need site cleanup, they need evacuation, they need food vouchers. Some charities will give goods that don't actually make a big difference in people's lives. Donated goods, donated clothing sometimes is more of a headache. It actually incurs costs. Charities have to, sort through it, and most of it goes to landfill. So people are giving with good intentions, but it's actually causing a burden. It's causing a problem. There were, occasionally you hear about charities just, with the best of intentions, but not thinking it through properly, like good people rushing in. And, if you're looking at the Haiti earthquake, I know that Anna Maria Tremonti was on CBC and talking about the problem of good people showing up who don't actually have the skills to do the work that's required. So that would be low impact. And then on the flip side of that, you'll see charities that really know what they're doing. They know their clients. They have a track record of good results year after year after year. And so those are the charities that I would recommend donors look at. And I think when you read a Charity Intelligence report, the feedback is people are like, I didn't know it did so much. I feel more confident in my giving when you have that information.
There is this recent report out, speaking of reports, from the Fraser Institute that talks about donations declining. How charitable are Canadians from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Marcy. When I read that report, I get angry. It's misinformation. Canadian giving is not down. In the most recent year, Canadian giving we see being up 8.9%. 8.9% is higher than the increase in inflation, the increase in cost of living. Canadians are incredibly generous. And when you read headlines that Canadians are Grinches because of some analysis that fewer Canadians are attaching donation tax receipts to their income tax return, and that's meant to be a measure of our generosity, it's just bad data. It's just bad research. No. So Canadians are incredibly generous, and giving is actually up 8.9%. So again, in the charity sector, we give so much with our hearts that we don't have the data, we don't have the research to make informed giving decisions. And that's what we do at Charity Intelligence.
Just before you go this morning, do you have advice for listeners who might be looking to make donations around the holidays? Obviously, they can look at the list, but also just leave us with the last maybe big thing you'd like to stay with people today.
Yeah, give yourself time. Canadians are so generous, and Canadians have a habit of giving when asked, whether it's somebody calling you up on the phone or mailing you charity stuff, or even at the checkout. Give a toonie here, give a toonie here. It's okay to say no, thank you. I would like to learn more about this organization, because your giving really does matter. And it's giving with intention. So giving yourself some time to do a little research, really become informed about the charity, and think about what really matters to you. So often what we see are large national Canadian charities fundraising across Canada, and all the donations sort of go to head office. You may be thinking more about your local needs, and the smaller local charities don't have the massive multi-million-dollar fundraising budgets. So that's where you become active in your giving
To take your
rather than just
time.
passively
Yeah.
giving.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your time this morning, and happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
That's Kate Bain now with us live, Managing Director of Charity Intelligence. We reached her in Toronto. It's interesting, when I'm at the till now, someone in front of me one time said, not at this time. And I thought that's a lovely way if you're, not ready or you have more questions, about giving. I always ask about local, or if I'm rounding up my bill, or if I'm giving something more, if I'm in that moment where you're kind of like, I don't have enough time to think about it. That's always one of my questions, actually. A good point there. Does this money stay locally, if that's one of the things that you value? It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock right now. And Heather Wells is in with other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a trucking company on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border hopes it will get easier to do business across the provinces in the new year. The conversation around interprovincial trade barriers has intensified under American tariffs in the last year. Manitoba's senior representative to the U.S. says Canada's new ambassador has his work cut out for him. Richard Madden responding to the appointment of Mark Wiseman. Wiseman, a finance executive with no diplomatic or government experience, but Madden says Wiseman's background can help Canada in trade talks. We'll hear more Manitoba news coming up at 7:30.
Still ahead.
What we're actually seeing from our funding gap is that we haven't been able to keep up with the surge in numbers over the last 3 years.
After 7 o'clock on the show, Kidsport Manitoba is facing a $150,000 funding gap heading into the new year, all due to a growing number of kids that need help to cover the cost of playing sports. So how will communities be impacted? CBC's Sierra Sanders is going to be in with that story, so stay tuned for that. Also in the next hour, from open flames to color-changing LEDs, we're going to take you through a local exhibit showcasing the history of holiday lighting. And the flu. As you've been hearing in the news, flu outbreaks are climbing nationwide. Manitoba is reporting a troubling rise in deaths. What is driving the surge? How concerned should we be? We're going to talk to an epidemiologist to break it all down. Watch the highways. It is minus 14 in Winnipeg. It's cloudy. We'll be around there for the day. In Portage and Maryland, stalled vehicle.
CBC's New Year's Eve show is back, and we want to know, what are you doing on New Year's Eve? Last year, we reached 6.8 million Canadians as we counted down live in all 6 time zones. Now, we're looking to join celebrations across Canada. Are you getting married? Doing something special? Send an email to ask@cbc.ca, and we might send our cameras to your party. Get ready for the live Cross Canada Countdown.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The U.S. Department of Justice has released thousands of new files on Jeffrey Epstein this morning. The documents include more information about the convicted sex offender and mentions U.S. President Donald Trump. Many lawmakers say the Justice Department is violating its legal obligations and that much of what has been released in the Epstein documents is highly redacted. Steve Futterman is following the breaking news. And Steve, what are we learning so far from this latest document dump?
Well, this is a massive document dump, 11,000 files, the largest so far. One particular email that's getting lots of attention right now is an email in 2020 from a U.S. attorney in New York talking about Donald Trump on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. And the email says that Trump is on a passenger, listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993, 1996. That's a lot more than he has been at least talked about before. Trump, of course, has tried to distance himself many, many times from Jeffrey Epstein. And on this passenger list, there are at least 4 times on the flight that he is on with Ghislaine Maxwell. On one flight, he and Epstein are the only 2 passengers listed. And there's another flight where the 3 passengers listed are Epstein, Trump, and what's described as a then 20-year-old. So, I mean, none of this is put in context. Does it mean much? It just means that perhaps Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein may have been a bit closer than he's wanted to talk about before. It does not suggest that Trump has done anything wrong, but it does give us more of an idea of their relationship, at least in the early 1990s.
What are we hearing from the Department of Justice?
Well, they're saying that so far more than 30,000 documents have been released, but they point out that some of the documents contain what the Justice Department calls untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump. By the end of the year, we expect a lot more documents to be released. Many of the victims, though, are concerned that the redacting process is not actually working perfectly. Some of the victims are quite concerned that their names are being mentioned for the first time.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.
Reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. The United States military says it has conducted another strike on a vessel in the Eastern Pacific. At least 1 person was killed on a boat that officials say was smuggling drugs. The U.S. Southern Command says the vessel was being operated by designated terrorist organizations in international waters. The White House maintains the strikes are meant to stop the flow of drugs into the U.S. But critics say it is U.S. President Donald Trump's attempt to push Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro out of power and lay claim to the country's oil. The U.S. has seized at least 2 oil tankers off the coast of Venezuela. Trump says that maybe the U.S. will keep the oil or sell it. Much of Ukraine is on high alert this morning. Overnight, Russia launched a huge attack targeting homes and power grids across the country. At least 3 people were killed, but Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says air defense systems are working. Krista Gomansing is following developments from London.
Ukrainians rescued from smoke-filled buildings in the Zaporizhzhia region in the southeast of the country. Overnight and into this morning, 13 regions were targeted by Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky posting on social media that Russia deployed more than 650 drones and over 3 dozen missiles. Logan is a Ukrainian soldier on the front lines around Kharkiv. For operational reasons, last names are not generally provided, and often soldiers use nicknames.
Mostly this attack is focused on the cities which are all around Ukraine, not on front lines.
Russian state media reports, quote, the defense ministry is having hit Ukrainian infrastructure and military sites. Poland, a NATO member, scrambled aircraft to ensure its airspace was not violated. The strike comes a day after a top Russian military general was killed in Moscow, and as peace talks between the parties and the U.S. continue. Yesterday, U.S. President Donald Trump said talks are going okay.
And I say that, there's tremendous hatred between these 2 leaders, between President Putin, President Zelensky, tremendous hatred, and I hope we can get it done.
With deadly strikes ongoing, it appears Ukrainians will spend a 4th Christmas under attack. Crystal Gamansing, CBC News, London.
The Alberta Prosperity Project is one step closer to getting a referendum on separatism. Its last proposed question was deemed unconstitutional. Since then, the Alberta government has changed the law. And now Elections Alberta has approved a new petition from the group. It calls for a referendum asking Albertans if their province should become an independent state. Mitch Sylvester is the Alberta Prosperity Project's CEO.
I think this is going to be the biggest political decision anybody in Canada will ever make in their lifetime. I believe every Albertan will be much better at the end of this referendum vote if we vote to leave Canada. The Canada that I grew up with is no longer the Canada that I'm living in, and my fervent hope is to have that back.
His petition now has 4 months to collect nearly 178,000 signatures. Another petition calling for Alberta to remain part of Canada forever has already collected more than enough signatures and had been certified. A BC family is sharing a travel nightmare. They were denied boarding on a Flair Airlines flight. The family was traveling with their infant and pets to visit relatives for the holidays, but the airline wouldn't let them on board. They say Flair cited a Transport Canada policy. As Tanya Fletcher reports, the regulator says that policy doesn't exist.
Your whole body goes into goosebumps and you're frantic, thinking, oh my gosh, what am I going to do?
Rebecca Colson describes the moment her family was blocked from boarding a Flair Airlines flight from Abbotsford to Toronto. She and her husband traveling with a baby and 2 dogs mid-December to spend the holidays with relatives. After a smooth check-in, they were suddenly denied boarding at the gate. Flair's reason? A policy stating that each adult can only travel with either one infant or one pet.
They said that this policy is very internal, so internal that it's not on their website. No one knows except if you actually go through this experience.
The airline told CBC News if an infant and pet are traveling together, Transport Canada regulations require that each be accompanied by a separate adult, adding this is not a new rule. But Transport Canada maintains that's not the case, saying, quote, there are no Transport Canada requirements related to passengers traveling with both infants and pets. However, individual airlines may have their own policies or restrictions.
This was a total abuse of power by Flair. These passengers should never have been denied boarding.
John Graddick is an aviation expert with McGill University. He says the onus is on Flair for not making the policy explicitly clear to passengers, and says the airline should be responsible for alerting travelers in this situation at the time of booking, not minutes before takeoff. The family wound up flying with Air Canada instead. Flair has since clarified its policy online and agreed to pay some compensation. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Fitness watches and wearable devices are growing in popularity. One of the largest companies in the industry, Garmin, is relying heavily on technology developed in a small town in Alberta. The CBC's Paula Dehachik has more.
Every time I do a run, I take it with me.
Runners like Calgary's Niels Keeley say these days a running watch is practically a necessity. According to market research firm Circana, spending on fitness watches and wearables is up nearly 90% compared to last year, and some important technology that makes these devices work was developed in the small town of Cochrane, Alberta.
Yeah, we started the business with that little foot pod that went on your running shoe.
Jim Rooney started making fitness trackers out of his Cochrane garage in the late 90s. His company was later acquired by Garmin. Now he runs its Canadian office, where they figure out how to take biometric data from a person's wrist and plug it into their watch. The data is highly in demand these days. Garmin's latest revenue from fitness devices up nearly 30% compared to the year before.
They're enjoying a tremendous level of commercial momentum at the moment.
David McGregor is an analyst who covers Garmin, though he says the state of the economy could pose a challenge.
They're enjoying very high level of commercial momentum right now at a time when, people are concerned about affordability, but it's just not clear how far into that experience Garmin could remain resilient.
As for Rooney with Garmin Canada, he says the plan is to keep churning out new technology to keep customers interested. Paula Duhacek, CBC News, Cochrane, Alberta.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. Welcome to Tuesday. It is December 23rd. We're glad you're with us on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Cold, baby cold. Yellow level warning of cold for Lynn Lake, Leaf, Puck, Brochet, and Taduli Lake. It could feel like minus 45. It's going to be milder in the south weather in just a moment. Also, this hour on the program, hundreds of kids in our province could actually miss out playing organized sports next year. We're going to find out about Kidsport Manitoba facing a $150,000 funding shortfall, so stay tuned for that. Also, really nice seasonal story coming up. We're going to step back in time and explore the Christmas lighting trends of the last century, and this is tied to something you can check out in Winnipeg. And then to serious news, flu outbreaks, as you might know, are climbing nationwide. Manitoba is not an exception to this. We're going to find out more about what is driving the surge. Stay tuned. Right now, let's go to Heather Wells. She has other updates on news stories with our headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Peguis First Nation has filed a lawsuit against its former chief, alleging kickbacks, diversion of funds, and other corrupt practices. That's a quote. The band claims in a lawsuit Glenn Hudson enriched himself, his family, and his supporters. A Winnipeg City Councillor isn't sure what more can be done to get drivers to stay off residential streets when they're being plowed. The city has been asking you to know your zone and check for parking restrictions this week. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says some people haven't gotten the message and stay parked, forcing plows to go around them, leaving big mounds of snow. We'll hear from her and what she thinks has to happen in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Abby, what's going on?
Yeah, we're looking at cloudy conditions in the southern part of the province and a few flurries expected later in the day, while the dangerous yellow warning for extreme cold still in effect for the northern regions, talking about around Tuduli Lake, Lynn Lake, Brachet, and all the way towards Churchill this morning. For Winnipeg, we're currently sitting at minus 14 and it's cloudy outside. Temperatures will stay steady around that minus 14, minus 15 all day. A slim chance of flurries in the forecast for us. Breezy northwest winds will come with that. We're looking at a high of minus 14 today before we dip to maybe minus 15 tonight under cloudy skies, and then we see a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow. Across the southern part of the province, we're seeing temperatures holding steady also between minus 12 and minus 16 throughout the day, while further north we're dealing with the dangerous cold for Thompson, Churchill, and the northern lakes, where temperatures sitting near minus 30 at this time and the wind chills near minus 45. So frostbite in minutes for folks exposed outside. But across board, it's more like freezing conditions up north and cloudy conditions down south with just a few flurries in the forecast. We see light snow in Brandon at this time. Winnipeg, we are at minus 14 and it's cloudy.
You want a bit of a bright before we look at the traffic conditions?
Bring it on.
So we asked people what holiday tradition, food or song could you never see or do again and be fine with? We'd like you to call us, by the way. So this one came up. I knew it would. Any Christmas songs, Edward Rascon Urias wrote in, any Christmas songs sung by Alvin and the Chipmunks?
Well, why?
Really? No
Why?
way.
No.
Okay, for me, I'm gonna get hate mail for this. That Paul McCartney song, like simply having a wonderful Christmas time, does not make my Christmas a wonderful time. I'm just gonna say it. Teresa White, Wright Forsyth says mistletoe. Doesn't like the mistletoe. Yeah, maybe too much pressure. I don't know. Mistletoe actually has kind of a gross origin, I think. I think it was like some kind of a weed grown in like something that we don't like to talk about in the morning. Yeah. Sure. Yesterday we asked you what Christmas tradition must happen. Today we're asking you what you can do without. 788-3205. A little bit of a levity on morning. Actually, before you hit that sting, I have to talk about traffic. We have a couple things going on. So this one might be cleared, and we want you to tell us if it is. Portage and Maryland stalled vehicle. That was earlier. Also, on the highways, heading south out of Winnipeg, 75, southeast 1 and 15, north highways 59, 6, 7, 8, and 9. They're all partly covered, so be careful. And then we got visibility issues through the Lac du Bonnet area and also up around Highway 10 toward Flin Flon. So if you need to reach us, 788-3093. Well, as I mentioned, hundreds of Manitoba kids could be left on the sidelines next year due to the rising cost of sports. That is according to Kids Sport Manitoba. The organization provides grants to help cover the cost of enrollment for organized sports. Last year, they helped just over 1,800 kids access sport. But now Kids Sport's facing a $150,000 funding gap heading into 2026. And CBC's Sierra Sanders is here to explain what's going on. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So first, tell us why Kids Sport is seeing seeing this funding gap?
Yeah, so over the last 3 years, they've seen an influx in numbers, which we just talked about. The numbers are up 20%. They supported over 1,800 kids last year, 1,802 to be exact. But now they're looking at a desperate situation. And this is already after they brought the grant money down from $300 from $500, which takes away the flexibility of the grant. So kids only have $300 to work with instead of $500. So kids aren't able to participate in multiple sports like they could with $500. And Dustin Eyre is the program coordinator of Kids Sport Manitoba, and he says the gap is coming from a few different areas.
Coming out of the pandemic, a lot of the fundraisers that we did have that had significant momentum, they weren't able to really carry forward during the pandemic. And what we've really struggled to do is actually find a flagship that's going to be able to move it forward.
And with these areas of concerns, the reserve that they had is completely gone. And they're at the point now where they are going to have to turn kids away.
What kind of impact does Kids Sport Manitoba have on families that they work with?
So yeah, Marcy, I had the chance to speak with Angel Mabunga. Her 15-year-old son, Atreus, played tackle football this fall, and she has 7 kids and wants them to participate, not be on the sidelines. And so she started Googling and looking around to see if there was an organization that could help with the cost. And that's where she found Kids Sport Manitoba. And thankfully, they got approved after applying. And with this approval, things changed for her family. And I'll let her explain.
I saw a glow up that had nothing to do with their screens or toys, and it was confidence. Like they started standing taller, talking about teamwork, learning discipline, sleeping better.
So being able to participate gave the family something positive to rally around. And she said there was less boredom, less chaos, and more routine. And she described it as their calendar got busier, but their home got happier.
Oh, I love that. How does Angel feel then about the situation Kids Sport's in?
So Angel understands that Kids Sport is what they're going through right now. And she knows what the organization has done for their family. Here's what she had to say about that.
For me, if Kids Sport didn't exist, my child might still be watching from the sidelines instead of playing. And that breaks my heart to even imagine. Because, now I've seen how much sport can change a child.
I wonder when you're looking at the gaps here in your reporting, to widen it out, how much might their funding gap in Kids Sport's issue right now affect, communities?
So the money Kids Sport Manitoba provides goes directly back to the communities where these kids are playing. Their funding provides money to support the kids, but it's also going back to the community centers or sports clubs in those areas. And they're helping fund those communities, not just the kids. And it's a compound effect, as Dustin from Kids Sport Manitoba described it. Here he is again.
If we support 2 kids on a baseball team in a small town in Manitoba, if those 2 kids aren't able to be supported by Kids Sport, that could actually mean that they don't have enough players to actually play the sport. So even the revenue that they would get from their other teammates, that's not accessible to them simply because they don't have the numbers to support their team.
There's also concern, I understand, about the impact that this can have on specifically on newcomer families in Manitoba. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so when newcomers arrive, they're starting to get to know and get involved in their communities, and it could have a detrimental effect not accessing sport. Dustin with Kids Sport says sport is one of those avenues where it can really bring communities together. For newcomers, it's a way to gain friends, but it also impacts their parents and siblings. But he also sees the impact from Kids Sport's perspective in the way of needing to grow. And when they look at the demographic of youth they're helping, the northern part of Manitoba is very underrepresented. This year, they're helping under 100 kids up north. So when we look at that big over 1,800 kids they're helping, only 100 of those kids are from up north. And unless they can bring money in, it's hard to promote up there. And the last thing they want to do is say no to a kid and having to send that denial letter to their family.
How does Manitoba compare to other provinces when it comes to kids facing financial barriers to participate in play sports?
Yeah, so when I spoke with Dustin, he said numbers across the country are up, so Manitoba isn't too different. And he said for the longest time at Kids Sport Canada, so the national organization, they had the tagline that 1 in 3 kids couldn't afford to participate in sport. Now, what they've seen across the country is the number has changed to 1 in 2. So 1 in 2 kids in Canada aren't able to participate in sport because of financial barriers. And a big part of this bump in numbers is also because of new Canadians, which we just talked about. Dustin said about 25% of the kids they assist are newcomers. But there are some provinces who have been able to mitigate some of these challenges we've talked about with more established fundraising events and different sponsorships that they're able to get.
What about when you look at kids sport and organizations like it, others that also do the same kind of work? How do we measure their value to communities overall?
Yeah, so I had the chance to speak with Professor Alicia Strawn. She's the Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Studies in the Faculty of Kinesiology and Recreation Management at the University of Manitoba. And her research is focused on positive youth development through sport. And she expressed how important the work kids sport does, but also says that organized youth sport is becoming more and more professionalized, and it does squeeze out those communities we're trying to serve in sport. She says every kid should have access to sport, whether it's within school or outside of school, and commended kids sport for the work it does and giving kids the opportunity to experience sport. But it comes back to access.
I think if we're decreasing funding, we really are decreasing access, and not just access to kids learning more about different sports and sports skills, but it really goes beyond that in terms of making meaningful friendships and also feeling just more connected to their communities and wanting to serve their communities.
She referred back to her research, which touches on a concept called the 4 C's, and it's the development of confidence, competence, connection, and caring in kids. And there's an additional C she wanted to add, so another C to add to the 4 C's, and it's contribution. She said at the end of the day, we want sport to build kids who want to give back and contribute to their communities.
If young people don't have access to sport, and to be able to have that one context in order to help grow and develop, then they are. It's really a disservice to them and the things that we want for communities.
So where does kids sport go from here then?
According to Dustin with kids sport, they're able to get through the rest of this year and part of next year. But moving into the second quarter of 2026 is when things get concerning. And without significant funding, even more kids could be sidelined in 2027. So we could see this rollover effect start to happen. And, donations is always where they need help, whether it's one-time donations or developing their monthly donation pool where people donate $2 to $3 a month. But going back to what Professor Strawn had to say, she brought up another way of possibly reaching more kids. And for context, she used to be a physical education teacher before she went back to school and has been involved with baton twirling for over 30 years. And she thinks that we need to put more resources into school sports. It's where kids spend most of their days. They have access to not just physical education, but they also have access to participate on teams at virtually no cost or very little cost. And she sees schools as a gateway.
We start the passion for kids to love movement in school settings. So to me, if we can, provide more funding, provide more incentive, make sure that there are quality coaches at the high school, junior high, elementary level, to me, that's the place where we can, I think, really affect change and really then help kids develop through sport all the way till grade 12.
So Professor Strawn also pointed out that kids who are on club teams outside of school also play on school teams. It's almost like a system. They get a lot of experiences because they can afford to do both. But we know there are kids who can't. And she says if we can protect space, protect the way we structure high school and junior high sports, more kids have a chance to access sports. And this isn't even mainstream sports like baseball, volleyball, and hockey. For example, I played water polo in high school. So lots of opportunities to play different kinds of sports throughout your schooling career. But it's also an opportunity to have different friends who are across grades that you might not normally interact with. And that's the power of sport right there, is to connect people.
What's going to stay with me from your report as well this morning, that idea of a denial letter. Mm-hmm. I never really thought about that. Like if you apply to get funding, if you want your kid to be able to access sports and then you get a denial letter, that would be so difficult to explain to your kid. All right. Thank you for this morning, Sarah. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That is CBC Sierra Sanders with a story about funding shortfall for Kids Sport Manitoba.
Ho, ho, ho! Santa here with an invitation to call me on Radio Noon. The reindeer and I will swing by on December 24th to take your calls. Boys and girls, let me know if you're ready for Christmas. making cookies, creating decorations, putting them on the tree, and have your wish list ready. That's December 24th on CBC Radio Noon.
Tomorrow, Santa's coming at noon. Right now, Paul McGowan is with us at 7:25 a.m. with sports. Hello there.
Hi, Marcy.
That was rude, right? To make you the chaser to Santa?
I mean,
Santa's tomorrow, but here's Paul now.
I feel confident that I can follow Santa. I don't know if that's cocky or not, but
I like it.
I'm okay with it.
I like the confidence. All right, let's start with the Bombers. They have a new offensive coordinator next year.
And as far as coaching changes go, this is one of the more interesting ones. That's because 2025 offensive coordinator Jason Hogan is going to stay with the team. He started with the Bombers in 2022 as the running backs coach, got promoted last season to offensive coordinator, and he has accepted a demotion now back to running backs coach. Here's Winnipeg head coach Mike O'Shea.
From my standpoint, he's a really good coach. And, I think the timing was maybe a little too soon for him. And then most importantly, I know I didn't do a good enough job supporting him and making sure I was giving him what he needed. But certainly for a guy to take a step back and continue with the same team, that's a rarity. I like that about his character. He's certainly able to drop his ego and say, yeah, this is a job I want.
Now, to replace Hogan, the Bombers are bringing in Tommy Condell, who has served as OC with half of the teams in the CFL now. But importantly, Condell was offensive coordinator with the Tiger Cats back when Zach Collaros was starting there. And the two had some very productive seasons working together in Hamilton between 2013 and 2015.
All right, let's go to the World Juniors now, where Canada plays its final exhibition game tonight.
A matchup with Denmark tonight after a pair of tune-up games against Sweden. And those first two exhibitions were in southwestern Ontario. Tonight's game and the rest of the tournament are in Minnesota. Not that far of a trip. And if I told you, Marcy, that Canada had a chartered plane to Minnesota, you might marvel at the luxury that these young hockey players get to experience. But that trip over the border isn't quite what you might be picturing. And that's because Canada has to share that chartered plane with Sweden, the team that they just played twice in a week. Forward Porter Martone was asked whether having two teams in the same plane would lead to chirping across the aisle.
I don't think so. Keep it classy, keep it humble. So yeah, we're sitting at the front of the plane, they're sitting at the back. So, hopefully nothing too bad happens. But it's good. We're competitors. We're both two teams, and the game's over. And we do see them again. We compete again. But right now, I think it's gonna be a good plane ride over to Minnesota.
Yeah, the two teams did play a couple of games, but there's not that much to chirp about except maybe who gets to board the plane first, which I think is Canada sitting at the front. But anyways, last game against Denmark tonight. Canada then opens its tournament, of course, on Boxing Day, and that's against Czechia.
Let's finish with basketball. A Canadian has reached a very exclusive milestone.
And that Canadian, of course, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the reigning MVP, the odds-on favorite to win this year's MVP. He scored 31 points last night in a win over the Grizzlies, and that marks 100 straight games in which Shai has scored 20 or more points. Here is the list of players who have done that before. Wilt Chamberlain, the only player ever to score 100 points in a game. And that's it. That's the list. Shai is just the second player ever to score 20 in 100 straight games. Coach Mark Daigneault was talking after the game about what Shai brings to the table.
What I can tell you about is the consistent work he puts in, the vision he has, the commitment he has to the game, his craft, the team. He's always in character on that stuff. He is ruthlessly consistent in the invisible spaces that I see that you guys don't, and there's probably 100 more that I don't see. It's no accident that he's the player that he is. He's literally chiseled himself into this player.
All of that maturity and consistency at just 27 years old. Wilt Chamberlain's record, by the way, Marcy, is 126 straight games with 20 points, which, given Shai's talent and the supporting cast around him and how good the Thunder have been this year, it feels very much in reach for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander.
It's just wild, eh?
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, Marcy.
That's Paul McGowan live with Morning Sports on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Thanks for being with us with Information Radio, 89.3 FM, 990 AM. On the app and on YouTube, it's -14 in the city. 511 before you get out on the highways. Check first before you leave. Also, in the city of Winnipeg, it's been actually a pretty quiet morning out there so far, but we still have that traffic alert. Portage and Maryland with a stalled vehicle in your westbound first middle lane. Still ahead after your 7:30 news, we're going to step back in time and explore Christmas light trends of the last century, from open flames, can you even imagine, to color-changing LEDs. We're going to take you through an exhibit that you might want to check out this holiday season. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is minus 14, and that's where we're going to stay. In fact, our temperature really won't move much. Not only just through today, our high minus 14, but overnight our low is minus 15. So pretty much sticking to where we are right now. There's a slight chance of flurries. Peguis First Nation has filed a lawsuit against former band chief Glenn Hudson. As CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the statement of claim raises allegations of kickbacks, diverting funds, and what it calls other corrupt practices.
In a statement of claim filed Friday with Manitoba's Court of King's Bench, Peguis alleges Hudson failed to act in the best interests of the band and benefited from breaches of duty when he served as chief. The band claims in the lawsuit Hudson enriched himself, his family, and his supporters. The claim alleges Hudson made cash gifts to band members and invoiced the band for home furniture and vehicles. Hudson was the chief from 2007 to 2015, and then from 2017 to 2023, when he lost an election he's still contesting in court. Current Peguis chief Stan Bird said in a video address Peguis's counsel didn't take the decision to sue a former chief lightly. Hudson said in a statement he'll defend himself from what he called frivolous claims from Stan Bird. Hudson said Bird is waging a negative campaign in an attempt to affect the outcome of the next election. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A Winnipeg City Councillor isn't sure what more can be done to get drivers to stay off residential streets when they're being plowed. The city's been asking you to know your zone and check for parking restrictions this week. Public Works Chair Janice Lukes says despite an advertising blitz, some people haven't gotten the message and stay parked, forcing plows to go around them.
It's not fair to the people that do move their vehicles and want a clean street. And, we can, I guess, spend all the money in the world on advertising. And I think we should just focus on maybe raising the price of the tickets.
The city stopped doing courtesy tows in 2022. People parked in a violation of a residential ban may still get that $200 ticket in the mail. The number of fines will be released after the snow clearing operation is complete, and that happens at 7 tonight. A trucking company on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border hopes it will get easier to do business across provinces in the new year. The conversation around interprovincial trade barriers has intensified under American tariffs in the past year, but some say they haven't seen much progress. CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us more from one company navigating two sets of provincial rules.
McKean's Trucking in the border city of Flin Flon, Saskatchewan, hauls gravel on both sides of the border. They're about 500 meters from it, forced to navigate two sets of provincial rules.
We're having to do two of everything a lot of the time.
Between safety and tax differences, there's also permits. Owner Robert McKean says his company is allowed to do business in Manitoba without a permit, but only within a 30-kilometer radius of the border. Anything further demands more paperwork, more money, more time.
I always like to say we're a country made up of multiple little countries.
The Manitoba government says the National Council of Transportation Ministers is developing a memorandum of understanding on interprovincial trucking. Transport Canada says that MOU aims to cut administrative burdens, although it won't lead to immediate changes for day-to-day operations. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba's senior representative to the U.S. says Canada's new ambassador has his work cut out for him. Richard Madden responding to the appointment of Mark Wiseman. Wiseman, a finance executive with no diplomatic or government experience. But Madden says Wiseman's background can help Canada in trade talks, including the upcoming review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico agreement.
His finance background
is an asset when it comes to dealing with the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary, because that's the same world they came from.
Madden says Wiseman will be surrounded by a big team in Washington to help him navigate U.S. politics. In what is the largest bombardment in months, Ukrainian officials say Russia fired more than 600 drones and 36 missiles into Ukraine overnight. Police in Kyiv cordoning off a damaged apartment building. The widespread attack continued for hours, with at least 3 people being killed, including a 4-year-old child. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says the bombardment just before Christmas during peace talks is, quote, a clear signal of Russian priorities. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A Steinbach teenager says she is gaining perspective after volunteering at a soup kitchen. 15-year-old Heather Bergman has been volunteering at Soups On for a year and a half.
It just makes me realize how lucky I am to have a family and have enough and more than enough.
Bergman received a $500 grant from the Chrysalis Fund to give to a charity. She chose the Steinbach Soup Kitchen. Norma Hildebrand is a coordinator there.
It's very important that we teach the younger generation, A, awareness of the needs in our community, and B, learning how to give back.
Soups On serves dinner to anyone in need twice a week at Steinbach's Grace Mennonite Church. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Let's get into the regional forecast now with Abby Adiemi.
Cloudy in the south with a slim chance of flurries for most of the regions, and that dangerous deep freeze still gripping the northern part of the province, where we have that yellow warning for extreme cold in effect for Tuduli Lake, Lynn Lake, and of course towards Leaf Rapids and surrounding communities. We're looking at wind chills in the values of -45. Frostbite is a thing this morning, so take it easy. For Winnipeg, we are at -14 and cloudy. Temperatures hold steady around that -14 for most of the day. We get to see some breezy conditions from the northwest. We are going to hold steady, no highs today. We're just going to stay around this before temperature dips out low to about -15 tonight, with some cloudy conditions before we see the sunny break tomorrow. The Pembina Valley region, similar conditions, -12 at this time. You're going to hold steady around that same temperature for most of the day, with light breeze. For the Westman region, Brandon towards Nipper, we're seeing light snow falling, with temperatures also holding steady around -15 for most of the day. Cloudy conditions you get. For the Parkland region, Dauphin towards Russell, -16 at this time. Cloudy conditions, getting some light breeze. You also stay steady. You might see -14s later today. For Gimli, -15 at this time. You're holding steady. Cloudy there. Some flurries might come your way in the afternoon. Then we track it into the northern part of the province. The path influence surrounding communities, light snow falling with temperatures around -23, but the wind chill factors in. Factor in the wind chill, it feels like -31 this morning. For Thompson, we're looking at -26, light snow there. We also see the wind chill around -37, a risk of frostbite in play. And then over to that area where we have the warning to Dooley Lake, it's frigid at this time. I see that as a cold spot in the province. Frigid -30.8 at this time. Cloudy conditions, the wind chill around -45. And then Churchill, you're around -30 at this time. Clear conditions, but it's windy there. You see the biting wind chills also feels like -43 for folks there. Overall, cloudy and a bit of flurries coming your way for the southern part of the province. And further north, we see those extreme colds with wind chills in the valleys of -45. Winnipeg, -14. We will stay there for most of the day and just a few flurries in the afternoon.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Check the highways before you go out. 511, partly covered in a lot of places. Some visibility as well. Issues through the Lac du Bonnet area, as well as up around Flin Flon on Highway 10. So check that before you head out. If you have anything to report in the city of Winnipeg, please pass it along on our commuter line, 788-3093. Well, one of the things you're passing along is what you could do without. We asked you, what holiday tradition, food, or song could you never see or do again, and be fine with that? We've had people writing into our Facebook page this morning, but we'll take calls too. Some people are backing me up, saying the Paul McCartney song has overstayed its welcome. And now I have an earworm, Mike Deal writes in. Brian Workington also agrees. He's not into that tune. We also have people writing in different things. So Vic Pereira says he could do without people saying happy holidays. He says, if we stop saying that, I will not miss it. He writes to CBC, let's call things what they are. Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Solstice, Diwali, and the list goes on. So he doesn't like the sort of general umbrella. He'd like people to get specific about their greetings. Prairie Artibus writing in, the mistletoe tradition has not aged well. It's definitely problematic. And finally here, we have Nicole Andre writing in with a photo. This looks like a Jell-O salad with olives in it. Think about that for a second. Nicole says, this was on the table every year until the mid-2010s. My grandparents could never understand why there was so much left over. And now you know. Anything jelly with things in it, right? Although I do like it with fruit in it, so who knows? What could you do without on the table? Or what tune or what tradition? What would you like to modernize in your family? What do you want to leave behind? If you're brave enough to share on Facebook, or you can call us 204-788-3205. Well, speaking of going back in time in traditions, how do you light up your Christmas tree if you celebrate Christmas and you have one? Small color-changing LEDs. Maybe you have some old incandescents that are still in good order. Perhaps you've retired your tangled string of lights and you've opted for a fancy laser projector on the tree of the house. Or maybe you're old school and you still use candles, though not recommended. Christmas lights have changed a lot over the last century, and what a season. A history of holiday lights takes visitors through the journey. This is at the Manitoba Electrical Museum. You're invited to walk down memory lane. Reed Winstone's the board president of the museum. He took CBC's Chloe Friesen on a Christmas tree tour through the decades.
The first tree, what are we looking at here?
This is a tree from the 1880s to 1900s. It's typically decorated with dried fruit or fresh fruit even, and candles. You'll note they're not lit at the time, but you've got popcorn strings, dried fruit strings, etc. People would spend an awful lot of time making the strings,
right,
and then hang them around the tree on Christmas Eve.
So now we're in the 1920s to 1930s. What changes?
Well, if you notice, there's no candles on the tree. The light bulbs have now become, NOMA has created Christmas lights, and all the lights have little beads on them so that you can clip them to the branch solidly and make the candles, or the lights stand straight up and look like candles. So the emulation there was important. And the figurines are got a theme now. Santa Claus has become a character, and you've got more animated characters. The star at the top of the tree, of course, is a tradition.
Looks like we're having a bit more fun now.
Yeah, well, these trees, all of a sudden now you're into the 1940s and 50s, and the artificial tree has become popular. And this is what is referred to as a bottle brush tree. The reality is all the limbs are what they used to make bottle brushes out of. They're just painted green or made with green fibers. And they all stick nicely in the shaft.
And what are these?
The Christmas lights have got shields, reflective shields behind them, and just to highlight the light itself. They no longer look like candles as much. And the figurines are a little bit more cute. But,
they kind of look like flowers.
Yes, they kind of look like flowers.
And then we get into the tinsel as well.
And tinsel as well. The tree was really quite frustrating to put together. People will remember the wire, twisted wire that was painted purple, blue, yellow, and the different colors went at different levels.
All right, now we're in the 60s and 70s, and yes, you can kind of tell.
Yeah, 60s and 70s, you're into high science. This is the height of Star Trek. This is Rush to the Moon. This is, you've got to try and be very scientific. And they came up with the aluminum tree. One of the challenges with the aluminum tree is that if you put the lights on them, they would short out. They were dangerous, so they're backlit. So you've got the light that
the light's behind, it's not on the tree. So Reed, we entered the 2000s and there's a big change.
Yes, the big change is in lighting. We've moved to LED lights, where we've gone from incandescent lights, which were the traditional large bulbs with a filament that heats up.
Yeah, you can feel it, they're very warm.
They get quite hot. And we moved to equivalent light, supposedly, LED lights, which do not get hot. Each one of these are outdoor lights like that you put on your house as opposed to on the Christmas tree. But each one of these lights is a 7-watt light bulb. This string with 25 or 30 lights on it is a 3.5-watt string. So there are 2 strings for every light bulb.
Really, in terms of how much energy it takes?
In terms of the amount of energy that you can take.
Okay, and you can see it, like this one is spinning quite a bit faster
than this one,
than this
they're
one.
hooked up independently.
Okay.
The couple of features that make it nice is if you're doing an outside tree, you can put like 7 of those strings together and put them all on one circuit without worrying about blowing a breaker. Where you can't do that with this. And you don't have to worry an hour later that your hydro bill's going through the roof, because really you're running 4 light bulbs.
So that is Reed Winstone, board president of the Manitoba Electrical Museum. If you want to go, it's at 680 Harrow, and you can catch Watt a Season, WATT, clever titling, A History of Holiday Lighting. It's on until January 10th if you want to check it out over holidays, if you have some. Thanks to CBC's Chloe Friesen and videographer Travis Golby for that item. If you were watching on YouTube, you got to see all of that, of course. Well, thinking about the lights, remember that scene in How the Grinch Stole Christmas when he comes to grab the light bulb? We thought we'd spark that memory this morning.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. You really are a heel. You're as cuddly as a cactus. You're as charming as an eel, Mr. Grinch. You're a bad banana with a greasy black peel. You're a monster, Mr. Grinch. Your heart's an empty hole. Your brain is full of spiders. You've got garlic in your soul, Mr. Grinch. I wouldn't touch you with a 39.5-foot pole. Mr. Grinch, you have termites in your smile. You have all the tender sweetness of a seasick crocodile, Mr. Grinch. Given the choice between the two, I'd take the seasick crocodile. You're a foul one, Mr. Grinch. You're a nasty, wasty skunk. Your heart is full of unwashed socks. Your soul is full of gunk, Mr. Grinch. The 3 words that best describe you are as follows, and I quote, stink, stank, stunk. You're a rotter, Mr. Grinch. You're the king of sinful sauce. Your heart's a dead tomato splotched with moldy purple spots, Mr. Grinch. Your soul is an appalling dump heap, overflowing with the most disgraceful assortment of deplorable rubbish imaginable. Mangled up and tangled up knots. You nauseate me, Mr. Grinch, with a nauseous super nos. You're a crooked, jerky jockey, and you drive a crooked horse, Mr. Grinch. sauerkraut and toadstool sandwich with arsenic sauce. I always thought green looked good on me.
Well, credit to Jill Barber. I have heard a lot of versions of that song. I'm not necessarily a fan of that tune, but I loved that. I actually think that is the best I've heard that song sung. So cool. That's her cover of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. It is 10 to 7 right now, or 10 to 8 rather, on 89.3 FM. Thanks for being with us on CBC this morning, Tuesday, December 23rd. We do have an extreme cold warning for one part of the province. We're talking about values of minus 45 with the wind chill. This is a warning for the cold for Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, Puckatawagan, Brochet, and to Dooley Lake. So you're bundling up north. Coming up on the program after 8 o'clock, you've heard this in the news this morning. People are confused about where they can park and where they cannot park in Winnipeg. You might have had your car towed during the residential parking ban, or maybe you didn't. But by the way, you could still end up paying a fine, an e-ticket handed out in the mail. We had a temporary ban on residential parking. You were allowed to be on winter routes. 7 o'clock tonight, you got to get off those. You might be confused. Councillor Janice Lukes is going to join us live to walk us through what's going on with the latest system and also the challenges with getting people to comply with the rules. Right now, as mentioned, minus 14 in the city of Winnipeg. And let's talk about the flu. It is shaping up to be a tough flu season all across the country. Cases are climbing. Hospitalizations are expected to surge in the coming weeks as well as people gather. That's according to the Public Health Agency of Canada. Here in Manitoba, so far this season, we've had around 1,500 people in the province who have tested positive for influenza. Also, according to the latest data, and they look week to week, they say that, this is from the province's website, I'm reading directly, they attribute deaths, fatalities from influenza in the current week to 15, and in the current season overall to 30 people who have died due to deaths with associated fatalities to influenza. So I'm just reading directly exactly what the website says. But we want to talk about going forward and what might be behind all of this. Cynthia Carr is with us this morning for an interview, epidemiologist and principal consultant at EPI Research Inc. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
How does the overall number of 1,500 people so far, just over that actually in our province, testing positive for influenza compare to previous years?
Well, definitely compared to last year, it's a very large difference. It's 23-24 is sort of our highest reference year in the past, 5 years or so, and it's still much higher. And in fact, just in the past 2 weeks, our numbers of cases have almost doubled. So that's a significant surge that we're experiencing here in Manitoba.
And what kind of factors could be contributing to the higher prevalence of influenza this year?
Well, certainly when we're looking at the incidence, which is the new cases that we're seeing that, as we said, are surging now. Obviously, one area is immunity. And, there is the challenge with lower overall vaccination rates again. And of course, the concern about sort of the imperfect match between the vaccine and the circulating virus, which both is creating more risk for people, but also, I think, leading people to think that they shouldn't bother being vaccinated, which is not true. There's still significant protection, particularly among kids in terms of hospitalizations, but a 75% reduction in hospitalization among kids that have been vaccinated. Versus not vaccinated. So that's really important to remember. And as a reminder, in the vaccine, there is also the vaccine against influenza B, which we will see a little later in the season. And that can also create serious illness. So still very important to be vaccinated.
When we look at the numbers, you mentioned what's concerning is also the rate. And you were looking at the number of fatalities and also sort of week to week how things are progressing. What should we make of the overall number of 30 deaths in the current season that are listed as associated fatalities to influenza? Do we know how that compares at this stage to maybe last year or previous years?
Yeah, so we need to kind of be careful with the mortality data. So associated means that within about 30 days before the person's death, they might have had a lab confirmed case of influenza. It could be confirmed postmortem. So it means that the person had influenza, but it might not have been the main cause of death. So, but serious, illness can result from influenza, can lead to pneumonias and all kinds of other things. So, again, I'm not meaning to dance around it. So in 23-24, there were about 10 deaths by this time. Last year, 24-25 was just a lower rate of influenza overall. So it's a trickier comparison than 23-24 that still had fewer cases, but more similar to this year.
Got it. You're not dancing around it at all. I'm seeking the clarity, and we actually going to reach out to the province again about specific weeks and how they're compiling the data, because obviously this is of concern. How much strain could this place on the healthcare system, just the overall fact that we have this many cases early in the season here, when you're thinking about ERs at this time of year?
Really important point. Our emergency departments are always busy, certainly this time of year, with even more sort of slips, falls, all kinds of respiratory viruses, whether it's RSV, COVID, influenza, heart attacks, all of those reasons that our emergency departments are open. This is the time of year where we see those visits surging. Right now, it's about 1,900 visits a week to our emergency departments. And usually sort of by the end of the year, I've seen that go up to about 2,500 emergency department visits a week. And much of that could be the flu, but that's related to respiratory infections in general. So that's just respiratory infections, not all of the other things that are going on at the emergency department. Those are big numbers.
What should people be keeping in mind heading into the holidays here and the gatherings that are about to happen?
Again, just what we've learned in terms of public health and prevention. If you're not feeling well, please stay home as much as you might want to see, friends and family. The issue with influenza, it's a little different from COVID as an example. When you're infected with influenza, you tend to get that onset of symptoms fast. So you might get infected and very quickly feel sick, down and out, stay home, whereas other viruses, it might kind of sneak up on you. So this time, if you feel those symptoms, fever, headache, just feeling really crappy in general, please stay home. It's not too late to get vaccinated. It's still very important in terms of prevention of severe outcomes. And as I said, don't discount influenza B, which will start sort of as we head towards spring, which is in that vaccine. The strain is matching and can really protect you as well.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
That's Cynthia Carr, epidemiologist and principal consultant at EPI Research Inc. on Zoom with us live. CBC did reach out to Shared Health and Health Canada for interviews. They were both unavailable, but we will reach out again to the province today as well, just to get a bit more clarity around those troubling numbers that we know are shared on their website so far around how many people have contracted influenza so far this season and the deaths related. Right now, it is 2 minutes to 8. Heather Wells in with the headlines.
Good morning. A Winnipeg city councillor isn't sure what more can be done to get drivers to stay off residential streets when they're being plowed. The city's been asking you to know your zone and check for parking restrictions this week. Public Works Chair Janice Luke says despite the advertising blitz, some people just aren't getting the message. A trucking company on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border hopes it's going to get easier to do business across provinces in the new year. The conversation around interprovincial trade barriers has intensified under American tariffs in the past year. We're going to hear about one company navigating two sets of provincial rules. Our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Coming up in the next hour of Information Radio after 8 o'clock, your car may not have been towed during the residential parking ban, the one that ends tonight that Heather's been mentioning in the news. However, there are electronic traffic tickets that are coming. We're going to talk to a city councillor about how to enforce things as we try to clean up the city after the recent snowfall and some of the challenges they've had around it. Some of the rules have been confusing drivers. Stay tuned. It's all coming up after 8, minus 14 in Winnipeg.
tomorrow on Q.
Is there anything we could do to cheer you up?
Vince Gilligan, creator of Breaking Bad, is back with a new show, Pluribus. It's a post-apocalyptic zombie tale with a twist. Instead of eating our brains, something wants to make us all happy. Vince will tell you about that and why we need more stories about good guys.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Your home, your neighborhood, your town, city, community, your country, your world, your news, your world tonight, every night, 7 days a week on CBC Radio 1, on demand on the CBC Listen app, and everywhere you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The U.S. Department of Justice has released thousands of new files on Jeffrey Epstein this morning. The documents include more information about the convicted sex offender and mentions U.S. President Donald Trump. Many lawmakers say the Justice Department is violating its legal obligations and that much of what has been released in the Epstein documents is highly redacted. Steve Futterman is following the breaking news. And Steve, what are we learning so far from this latest document dump?
Well, this is a massive document dump, 11,000 files, the largest so far. One particular email that's getting lots of attention right now is an email in 2020 from a U.S. attorney in New York talking about Donald Trump on Jeffrey Epstein's private plane. And the email says that Trump is on a passenger, listed as a passenger on at least 8 flights between 1993, 1996. That's a lot more than he has been at least talked about before. Trump, of course, has tried to distance himself many, many times from Jeffrey Epstein. And on this passenger list, there are at least 4 times on the flight that he is on with Ghislaine Maxwell. On one flight, he and Epstein are the only 2 passengers listed. And there's another flight where the 3 passengers listed are Epstein, Trump, and what's described as a then 20-year-old. So, I mean, none of this is put in context. Does it mean much? It just means that perhaps Trump's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein may have been a bit closer than he's wanted to talk about before. It does not suggest that Trump has done anything wrong, but it does give us more of an idea of their relationship, at least in the early 1990s.
What are we hearing from the Department of Justice?
Well, they're saying that so far more than 30,000 documents have been released, but they point out that some of the documents contain what the Justice Department calls untrue and sensationalist claims made against President Trump. By the end of the year, we expect a lot more documents to be released. Many of the victims, though, are concerned that the redacting process is not actually working perfectly. Some of the victims are quite concerned that their names are being mentioned for the first time.
All right. Thank you so much, Steve.
My pleasure.
Reporter Steve Futterman in Los Angeles. Air raid sirens, air raid alerts are still in effect across much of Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia targeted his country overnight with dozens of missiles and more than 650 drones. In Kyiv, police cordoned off a damaged low-rise apartment. At least 13 different regions were attacked. Zelensky says the attacks targeted the energy sector and civilian infrastructure. At least 3 people have been killed. Zelensky says now is the time for world leaders to push the Kremlin toward peace and force Russian President Vladimir Putin to stop the killing. Canada's Operational Command is considering permanent military bases in Latvia. They could help sustain Canada's NATO deployment in the Baltic region. That mission has been extended, but the Army is short of soldiers. And as Murray Brewster tells us, military planners are trying to figure out how to keep the ranks full.
At every option, very much understanding that we've got a limited number of troops.
Lieutenant General Steve Boivin is in charge of Canada's military operations, at home and abroad. He says planners under his command have embarked on a study about how to keep the deployment in Latvia going until 2029.
We're looking at whether it would make sense to permanently base people forward.
Boivin underlines, however, no decision has been made. No recommendations have gone to the Chief of the Defence Staff or the government on the notion of permanent basing. Right now, about 2,200 Canadian troops cycle through Latvia roughly every 6 months, a costly, time-consuming exercise that means there are very few soldiers left over for other missions. Steve Seidemann, a defense expert, says NATO nations have been reluctant to embrace the concept because of an agreement signed with Russia at the end of the Cold War that promised Western allies would not establish permanent bases in Eastern Europe. The invasion of Ukraine changed that.
The NATO-Russia Founding Act had some language to that effect, but since the Russians have violated pretty much every other clause of that agreement, we shouldn't be obligated by an agreement that they haven't respected.
At least one other NATO ally, Germany, has already embraced the idea and plans to have troops permanently stationed in Lithuania by 2027. Murray Brewster, CBC News, Ottawa.
It has been a tough year in Canada's automotive capital. For months, the industry has been feeling the pain of U.S. tariffs. But as Emma Loop reports, a reimagined car built in Windsor, Ontario, is turning heads south of the border.
The reborn Dodge Charger six-pack is assembled in Windsor, but is racking up awards in the U.S., despite President Donald Trump's efforts to keep Canadian cars out. Dodge CEO Matt McAleer says the gas-powered car symbolizes the brand's future.
This marks kind of the evolution of muscle cars as we know it.
The 550 horsepower six-pack started rolling off the line in Windsor earlier this month. Since then, it's won Top Gear's U.S. Car of the Year and the Detroit News' Vehicle of the Year. It embodies a broader shift back to gas as the electric market stagnates. Auto analyst Sam Fiorani says car companies had geared up for huge EV adoption.
And while there is a market for EVs, a lot of buyers really want a gas engine because they understand it.
For Canada's car capital, the reborn Charger is also a glimmer of hope. Windsor's unemployment rate was among the highest in Canada for much of the year. Mike Stevenson is from Unifor Local 444, which represents workers at the plant.
Stellantis is putting these cars here in spite of the tariffs. So that's a testament to the workforce. And to me, I'll take that good news while we can get it because it's been a tough year.
The six-pack is now a finalist for North American Car of the Year. The winner will be revealed next month at the Detroit Auto Show. Emma Loop, CBC News, Windsor.
The Alberta Prosperity Project is one step closer to getting a referendum on separatism. Its last proposed question was deemed unconstitutional. Since then, the Alberta government has changed the law. And now Elections Alberta has approved a new petition from the group. It calls for a referendum asking Albertans if their province should become an independent state. Mitch Sylvester is the Alberta Prosperity Project's CEO.
I think this is going to be the biggest political decision anybody in Canada will ever make in their lifetime. I believe every Albertan will be much better at the end of this referendum vote if we vote to leave Canada. The Canada that I grew up with is no longer the Canada that I'm living in, and my fervent hope is to have that back.
His petition now has 4 months to collect nearly 178,000 signatures. Another petition calling for Alberta to remain part of Canada forever has already collected more than enough signatures and been certified. For years, families with children with autism have been speaking out about how difficult it can be to access services in Canada. Now a new group aims to help more families by using some four-legged friends. Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind has graduated its first 2 autism service dogs. The CBC's Natalia Goodwin met up with one of the families and their new helper.
4-year-old Nora Beale plays on the floor with her yellow Labrador, Fred, at her home in Pembroke, Ontario. But he's no ordinary companion. He's been trained by Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind. He helps her sleep better and with emotional regulation by applying pressure with his head, paws, or full body to help her calm down, explains her mom, Lindsay.
He responds and gives her something, like he's so soft, so like she loves to pet him.
He also has special training to prevent her from running off, which Nora is prone to do, with a second leash attached to Nora's waist. It allows the family to do simple things, like shopping together.
You know, we've been able to participate in community activities, and not only is that great for her, she has an older brother, and so it allows him to go out and participate in things because we're not so much worried about accommodating her needs in those environments.
Nsindisi Bongoza, a trainer with Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind, says the program was built out of need. They've been receiving requests for years.
Over the time, through inquiries and people always asking us, and then we thought in 2025, why not give it a try?
But all the work pays off when he sees the result with the families.
That gives that fulfillment that you contribute in somebody's life.
Canadian Guide Dogs for the Blind says it will continue to develop the program with placements planned for the upcoming year. Natalia Goodwin, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
And how'd you sleep? Do you have a list running through your head of things you're trying to get done? I think it's that time of year, right? Thanks for being with us this morning. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is CBC's Information Radio on 89.3. 9:90 a.m. on the app and on YouTube. Minus 14 is where we've been. Our temperature's not going to move much today. Abby in with the weather in just a moment. This half hour on the show, let's talk about parking, Winnipeg. We have had a lot of changes to where you can park and where the residential bans are and trying to clean up the snow. Your car may not have been towed during the recent residential parking ban that ends at 7 tonight, but you could still be hit with a $200 fine in the mail. We're going to hear more about e-tickets, how they replaced courtesy tows in Winnipeg, and also what the city's been hearing about the issues with parking and how to get that message through when you're parked in a no-go zone. So stay tuned. That's this half hour. Also, this half hour on the show, we have just reached Salvation Army Canada. They're going to talk about a shortcoming in the amount of donations that they've been able to raise through their annual kettle campaigns. So we're going to find out how short they are and what's been going on across the country. And of course, Salvation Army in Manitoba impacting a lot of families as well. So stay tuned. We'll have that for you live. Right now, let's go to Heather Welsh. She's in our news center with headlines.
Good morning. Well, Peguis First Nation has filed a lawsuit against its former chief alleging kickbacks, diversion of funds, and other, quote, corrupt practices. The band claims in the lawsuit Glenn Hudson enriched himself, his family, and his supporters. We're going to hear some details coming up. A Steinbach soup kitchen is benefiting from the generosity of a 15-year-old girl. Heather Bergman was awarded a grant from the Chrysalis Fund after making her case for Soups On. That's who she chose, that Steinbach soup kitchen, and we'll hear from her mom in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right, with the weather, here's Abby.
Yellow warning still in effect for the extreme northern part of the province, where we have the wind chills and the values of minus 45 this morning. A risk of frostbite for folks around Tuduli Lake and Lynn Lake this morning. Winnipeg, we are at minus 14. Just a very slim chance of flurries in the forecast with those northwest winds. That's nothing really to make you feel, to bring some concerns your way, I'll tell you. But we're going to hold steady for minus 14 this morning. And most regions down south, we're seeing temperatures between minus 12 and minus 14. But up north, dealing with those extreme wind chills.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
511, check your highways before you go out. Some visibility and partly covered issues around Lac du Bonnie and up around Flin Flon especially. In the city of Winnipeg, Portage and Maryland, there's a traffic alert. Still that stalled vehicle there. And now Logan and King Edward, there's been a collision. So westbound and eastbound median lane is partially blocked. Both those directions partially blocked, are blocked. And that is Logan and King Edward. 788-3093 if you need us. Wow, the sky's almost this gray-purple this morning. I just saw the shot come up on our YouTube stream. Well, let's talk about the residential parking ban. It was on to allow crews to plow streets after the recent snow dump. It expires tonight at 7 o'clock. So that means here drivers have been allowed to park on winter routes overnight on a temporary basis so crews could get around. But it doesn't mean you're safe from fines. It also doesn't mean that if your car was not towed that you escaped a $200 ticket. If you're having trouble keeping up with all the rules around parking in the winter, you're not alone. CBC's Josh Crabb caught up with Joe Davis. He's a Winnipeg resident. He found out he parked on a street under a residential parking ban moments after he walked into church.
They just said, sorry, but evidently there's a parking ban, and that was at about 10 o'clock when everybody was about to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was a surprise when you got here?
It was a surprise, yeah. But I was already here for a couple of hours, so I looked out, I saw the cars were still here, and I took a chance. I have parking spots for both my vehicles in my backyard, and I don't really pay a whole lot of attention to it.
Do you think there's anything more the city could do to get the message out to people that, an area like this, for instance, they didn't want people parking on the street yesterday?
I think if that was the case, maybe put up no parking, put up a bunch of signs along the road. I think that would maybe help.
That's Joe Davis speaking to the CBC's Josh Crabb. Well, Councillor Janice Lukes is here with us via Zoom, talking more about this year's residential parking ban. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy. Good morning.
So how often are you hearing from residents like Joe who are saying, I'm confused, I'm struggling with keeping up about where I can park and where I can't park?
I'm not really hearing about that. I'm hearing more, you left a windrow, when is my street getting cleaned, and things along those lines.
Got it. Now, what do you make of his suggestion the city could put up physical signs when there's a residential parking ban?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, if you were to put up a sign, where would you put it? Because when you plow the snow is pushed onto the boulevard, right? So it's not like the street cleaning when we do it in the spring where, we're not pushing snow against these poles. You'll notice a lot of times over the winter, the poles fall down because of the pressure of the snow, the ice that pushes against them. And also, it would just take a massive manpower force to put up signs and take signs down. And we don't even have enough signs, right? So that's out of the question. I think it's really important. The city has an incredible website on snow. And I think people need to just take a few minutes. We are a winter city when we have a big snowstorm. And especially when we've got a snowstorm where we've got horizontal winds blowing 90 kilometers an hour, our streets get plugged up. People need to take that little bit of extra time and find out where these zones are that are being plowed.
How far along are we after last week's snow dump with the residential plowing operations right now?
Yeah, there's just, it ends Tuesday. It's today, the 23rd.
Yep.
It ends tonight at 7 p.m. So we're well on our way to almost being finished. Most of the zones are done. Just C, V, and D zones are left to do. And some X. Those are the new streets and new ridings, new wards.
So let's try to make this clear for people who are listening to the radio. What happens once the residential parking ban is lifted tonight? You can't, and I'm going to just ask you if this is clear here. You have to know your zone when they're going to be coming through again, because you may have a parking ban locally. Is that right? And then you have to stay off winter routes.
Well, when the residential parking ban is lifted tonight at 7 o'clock, then you can park anywhere on the street except winter routes. And the winter routes are signed. And there's many streets that are winter routes. You can't park on those because they're primarily collector streets or primary streets that we need to get through with emergency vehicles or buses.
Now, if we have residential parking bans that come up again, and they will, it's going to snow, they're going to need to clear, and it's in your neighborhood and it's under a ban, but you actually look and say, oh, okay, I'm under a ban, but actually the plow's been through. Can you logically then just say, I'm okay to park there again? Or do you need to actually still not park there because crews are trying to get around?
Yeah, it's 12 hours that you can't park there, because often what happens is crews will come back within that 12 hours and do touch-ups, tune-ups. Maybe a parked car has moved. They'll clean that up. They have 12 hours to do a zone. Now, one thing I have been hearing, Marcy, is that some of the zones don't get finished within the 12 hours because there's probably been a lot of drifting. Some of the zones have increased in size. They will come back and clean the street.
In terms of people who do feel like the website doesn't work for them for some reason, they'd like some kind of other way to get information out, how challenging is it to sort of reach everybody with this message? Do you have thoughts on anything that could improve that?
Yeah. Well, let's say people don't have a website that they can look at, they can phone their city councillor. They can phone 311. I know 311 gets bogged down. But if they want to talk to a human, they have the councillor, or they can get through to 311. In today's day and age, it's pretty much website information. We do buy advertising. There is some advertising out there, but the details lay within the website.
Let's talk about the ticketing. So the city has been using electronic parking ticketing systems to enforce the parking ban rather than towing. Why tow on snow routes but not during the residential ban?
Why tow on snow routes but not during the residential
So
ban?
you still will tow a car, I understand, if it's sort of on a winter route on a regular basis. But if you're parked on a residential ban and you get caught on your street and you miss that zone that and you're stuck there, instead of being towed now, you'll just automatically get a ticket. So why is that? Why are courtesy tows out the window?
So courtesy tows were costing the city millions of dollars, and we were paying for people that weren't adhering to the rules. The good people were paying for people that weren't adhering to the rules. So we ended that. So when a residential plow is on for the whole duration of the residential ban, people can park on winter routes. They won't be ticketed. They won't be towed because those are primary routes that have been cleaned.
If they're on a winter route, let's just say they're on a winter route when they're not allowed to be on a winter route now. Okay.
During the snow ban, during the residential snow ban, they can park there. They won't get a ticket.
Understood.
They won't get towed.
I just want to make sure I understand this. But let's say there's no residential ban on. They're on a winter route. They're not supposed to be on a winter route.
Right.
They'll still be towed. I understand. And that's because is that because those routes are so important they have to get the equipment back and forth? Yes.
Yes.
Got it. You're not going to leave the car sitting there where you could in a residential area. If you did
because you know what, Marcy? There's a lot of narrower streets in our city. We're increasing density and population. A lot of people are parking on the roads. And these winter routes are key collectors. They're key primary routes to have buses and emergency vehicles go through. So we'll just tow.
If someone has, gets issued an electronic parking ticket, or I guess they won't know yet, when will those tickets start coming in the mail? Do we know what the lag time is for this snow incident?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. Canada Post seems to be working. So I would imagine as soon as the ban is done, they'll be... Yeah, that's a good question. I don't really know, but I'm sure it's probably days.
Yeah.
A long time.
We'll start hearing from people once they come, I'm sure.
I know.
Janice Lukes, thank you very much. There has been obviously some confusion around this. And even though we live in a winter city, obviously things are changing and you guys have changed some of the methods of doing things. So we appreciate you being on with us.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you, Marcy. Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners.
That is Janice Lukes with us live, Winnipeg City Councillor for the Waverley West Ward.
Hello, boys and girls. Santa here to remind you to call me to chat on December 24th on CBC Radio Noon. I will park my sled on the roof here, and let's hear how you're getting ready for Christmas. Santa is ready for any and all cookies, wants to sing Jingle Bells with you and go over your wish list. Let's chat here on CBC Radio Noon on December 24th. Talk soon.
Well, the sound of those bells is actually something that's associated with our next story. Because when you are out and about, you might be hearing the bells and turn around and look and see a Christmas kettle. The Salvation Army is the beneficiary of funds that you might pop into that kettle, a donation you might make. But they are having issues with their donations this year. So we are now 2 days out to Christmas, and Bernadette DeSantis is Divisional Secretary for Public Relations for the Prairies and Northern Territories for the Salvation Armies here in Canada, and is on the line with us. Good morning, Bernadette.
Good morning, Marcy.
So tell me what your kettle goal was for collection this year and where you're at right now.
Well, Winnipeg has 4 centers that collectively were going for about $357,000 this year. And with 2 days left in the kettle campaign, we are $127,000 shy of that goal. And that really affects our center's ability to provide services to struggling families at Christmas and year-round. So we're really making an appeal today. Today is the last full day of the kettle campaign. We're out until tomorrow, but we're really appealing today for people to make a final push to fill our kettles with cash and help us achieve this Christmas miracle.
So that $127,000 short of the goal is that those would be funds that would stay in Winnipeg and serve families here in our city, right?
Exactly. It's the best way for neighbors to help neighbors. Every single dollar stays in Winnipeg and directly funds programs right there in Winnipeg. So it's the best way for a community to help out at this time. Today we're in the Polo Park Mall. We're at the St. Vital Shopping Centre at the London Drugs. We're at the Costco in Headingley. We're at the Costco on Regent Avenue, and we're at the Superstore on Portage Avenue. And if you can't make it to any of those locations today, please visit any one of our centers, Heritage Park Temple on School Road, Living Hope Community Church on Morrow Avenue, or Southlands Community Church, and make your donation, cash, check, credit, even debit. We have tip-tap machines now at the kettles. So I know people don't walk around with cash these days, but there's so many different ways that you can make a contribution, and it'll stay right in the community, helping struggling families.
Have you been this short before? I mean, I know that I've read past stories, where you've been short sort of weeks out, but I mean, with a couple days to go before the campaign wraps up here, how unprecedented is this $127,000 short of your goal?
It's very unprecedented. Like at Heritage Park Temple, for example, last year we were at the same time, we were at $104,000 raised, and this year we're only at $70,000 raised at that same location. So this really underscores the financial strain that people are under this year and the decline in participation in charitable activity really across the country. And we really need Manitobans, Winnipeggers right now to really step up for their community and make one last-ditch effort to show us that this Christmas miracle can really happen in these last 2 days.
If people were listening to the whole show this morning, I need to mention this. Early this morning, we actually talked to a national charitable organization that disputed some of the figures that have been out in this country lately about charity being down, saying actually donations have been up, but maybe reporting of donating's been down. Which leads me to ask whether or not would a year like this, Bernadette, prompt the Salvation Army to reconsider how you go about soliciting for people to help you out. Is maybe the kettle campaign something that is, while a tradition for you, something that is not landing for some reason in 2025?
Well, the kettle campaign is iconic, and it's been around for more than 100 years. And there are many ways that people can give, and this is just one way that we can maintain presence in the community. So I think it's really important to maintain those traditions while looking for additional sources of funding.
Just last, you're talking about how the funds do stay, locally with the different work that you do in our community for the Salvation Army. What kinds of things might the funds be used for?
Well, at Heritage Park Temple, they have an increase in seniors and newcomers coming in for the first time. That's a community that's seen a lot of change. The seniors have been in the West End there in St. James for a long time, and they're really struggling this year with the rising cost of living. So we're helping a lot of seniors. We're helping newcomers. And, the donations are more than just about money. They represent hope in the community. People remember their experience with the Salvation Army, and then and it's really transformative experience for everyone. So we really invite everyone to support the work that we're doing in the local community, really helping their neighbors, really uplifting their community, and giving hope today when it's needed most.
Thank you so much for being with us, Bernadette. I appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much, Marcy, and Merry Christmas to you all.
Merry Christmas. That is Bernadette DeSantis with us live, Divisional Secretary for Public Relations for the Prairie and Northern Territories Salvation Armies, including the 4 locations here in Winnipeg. They are short $127,000. She says it's unprecedented, that shortfall, to reach their seasonal goal. Let's get to what is happening on Radio Noon today. I'm switching gears quickly, but Bruce Layden's popped in before the news to tell us about their call-in topic. Good morning.
Good morning. We're talking about grief. So grief during the holidays can be a very difficult thing. Obviously, we're going to have a spiritual care coordinator that works at a care home just down the road from us. He's been on our weekend show before. He's a great guy and he's very knowledgeable. He'll take your questions or your concerns. We'll just talk about grieving. For me personally, first time without my dad at Christmas time. So, it'll be a good, interesting talk. So
yeah. How are you doing with that? Where are you finding your support for that?
Well, a lot of people here are very supportive. Did you hear that exhale there?
Yeah, I did.
Well, it's something that
it hits you like waves.
Yeah,
right?
it does, and it might not, in the next few days, but it might. So I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bruce. Sounds like you're going to be a sensitive host for this topic, which is what it needs.
Hope so.
So that's between 12:30 and 1 o'clock. That is talking about dealing with grief over the holidays. That's the noon call-in today. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is -14, and that is pretty much where we're sticking for the rest of the day. That's today's high. Slight chance we'll see some flurries today. Peguis First Nation has filed a lawsuit against former band chief Glenn Hutson. In a statement of claim filed Friday with Manitoba's Court of King's Bench, Peguis alleges Hutson failed to act in the best interest of the band and financially benefited from breaches of duty when he served as chief. The band claims in the lawsuit Hutson enriched himself, his family, and his supporters. Hutson served as chief of Peguis from 2007 to 2015 and then from 2017 to 2023. He lost the band's 2023 election and is still contesting that decision in court. Current Peguis chief Stan Bird made a statement on Facebook about this lawsuit.
The decision to bring a lawsuit against a former chief was one that was not taken lightly by the council.
In his own Facebook statement, Hutson says he will defend himself from what he calls frivolous claims from Stan Bird. He tells CBC News in a text message Bird is waging a negative campaign in an attempt to affect the outcome of the next band election. Well, you likely weren't towed, but you still may have a ticket coming in the mail if you violated this week's Winnipeg residential parking ban. The city hasn't done courtesy tow since December of 2022, moving vehicles to nearby streets. Instead, it's issuing fines to people whose parked vehicles block plows from clearing streets. Waverley West City Councillor Janice Lukes chairs the city's Public Works Committee.
I don't know if there's anything more we can do. We did increase the price of tickets, which is $200, $150, I believe, if you pay early. We did that a couple of years ago. Maybe we need to increase the price of tickets.
The number of fines handed out during this residential ban will be released after the snow clearing operation is done, and that ends at 7 tonight. A trucking company on the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border hopes it will get easier to do business across provinces in the new year. The conversation around interprovincial trade barriers has intensified under U.S. tariffs in the past year, but some say they haven't seen much progress. CBC's Rosanna Hempel brings us more from one company navigating two sets of provincial rules.
McKean's Trucking in the border city of Flin Flon, Saskatchewan, hauls gravel on both sides of the border. They're about 500 meters from it, forced to navigate two sets of provincial rules.
We're having to do two of everything a lot of the time.
Between safety and tax differences, there's also permits. Owner Robert McKean says his company is allowed to do business in Manitoba without a permit, but only within a 30-kilometer radius of the border. Anything further demands more paperwork, more money, more time.
I always like to say we're a country made up of multiple little countries.
The Manitoba government says the National Council of Transportation Ministers is developing a memorandum of understanding on interprovincial trucking. Transport Canada says that MOU aims to cut administrative burdens, although it won't lead to immediate changes for day-to-day operations. Rosanna Hempel, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The head of Manitoba's trade office in Washington says Canada's new ambassador to the U.S. will have his work cut out for him. Mark Wiseman moves into the role as the two countries are locked in a trade war, and a review of the Canada-U.S.-Mexico Agreement, or CUSMA, is coming up. The U.S. wants changes to Canada's supply management system, including rules around dairy exports. Richard Madden is Manitoba's senior representative to the U.S.
It's not just supply management that's a driver in Manitoba, but agriculture exports, livestock, pork, grains. There is a push by many groups here in the U.S. to have mandatory labels of origin from Canadian livestock or Manitoba livestock coming into the U.S. Where Canada stands on that is a little unclear at the moment, so that's an issue he'll have to tackle.
Wiseman, a business executive, has no diplomatic or government experience, but Madden says Wiseman's background will be an asset when it comes to dealing with the top U.S. financial officials. A Steinbach soup kitchen is benefiting from the generosity of a 15-year-old girl. Heather Bergman was awarded a $500 grant from the Chrysalis Fund after making her case for Soups On. Twice a week, Soups On feeds anyone who needs a warm meal at Grace Mennonite Church. Heather has been volunteering in that kitchen for a year and a half. Heidi Bergman is her mom.
It's just really amazing to see your children grow and learn and find special ways that they can connect in the community and with others, and to see Heather's heart filled by helping others.
A group of 11 women from the Steinbach area started the Chrysalis Fund. You can read more about that story and other Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
Thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Thanks to Heather Wells and Joanne Levasseur in our news department. Also to our local team here in Studio 15, Darren Marash, Abby Adiemi, and May McKillop. Corey Funk's been serving as producer of Current Affairs shows this week. Thanks, Corey, and thanks to Leif Larson, our senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Those who had items in today's program, thanks to Kayla Silva, to Sierra Sanders, to Jenna Bedosso, to Chloe Friesen, all associate producers in our unit, and to Zabina Ahmed as well, who's a reporter and associate producer currently. All right, just make sure you're checking those highways all day long. It's going to get busy out there. Everybody was just like, so mad in traffic yesterday out and about. So remember, it's just going to be busy. Take it easy. Figure it out. It's going to take you longer where you want to go when it's slippery. Last word on the weather goes to Abby.
Yeah, heavy clouds dominate the northern part of the southern part of the province, with temperatures holding steady around -14, and up north we're seeing wind chills in the values of -45. So you need to take it easy today.
What are you wearing tomorrow? Are we going to get the
No, just something
ultimate Christmas sweater
just
for
something
Christmas Eve?
Christmassy, nothing too serious. Maybe just an add-on.
All right, we're getting near the end. Abby wears a different Christmas outfit every day for December. We'll see you tomorrow, Christmas Eve. Take care, be well, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. The Current's coming up next on CBC.